Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And today we're going to talk the Conservative Party of Canada, the Alberta Independence Movement, and another politician crossed the aisle to the Liberal side. I mean, what's going on in Canada is a little bit crazy. We're going to kind of lead off with the stories before we get into geopolitics.
And hello to everybody. Thank you for being here. Once again, please do remember to subscribe and like it because it really does help. And we read all your comments live, so make sure to let us know what you're thinking with each story. We read them at the end of each section. So,
well, yeah, we have if you've never watched the show, because we got quite a few new viewers, we have sections: the U.S., Alberta, stuff like this. After each section, we read all the comments.
But right now, I will say hello to Nan. Hello, Nan. Thank you for being back. Hope you're well. And Non also says, glad to be back. Well, that's good. Says, did some house dog sitting for my brother and his wife. I've also been helping with some off-season farm projects. I want to have a farm. Yeah. I want to have chickens and goats.
That's actually the goal of the channel. We want to get a little homestead. But first, we have to make this successful.
Yes. And says, in a couple of minutes, my dad is coming down to help me get a quad unstuck.
Oh.
Sounds very countryside, like the week in the country. Be safe with quads. We do know somebody that got very terribly injured with quads.
Yeah, we
fell off a cliff. So.
We went to lunch with somebody that literally fell off a cliff. Luckily to be walking even to this day, but it's permanently injured.
Yeah, in Vancouver. But yes, be safe and thank you for being here. And says be back for the rest of the show. Well, it'll take a while, so hopefully we'll still be here. We usually go for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And Non also says, my wife is bringing home some dinner because Non always tells us what they're having for dinner and says, haven't had time to cook. She is surprising me. Well, let us know what the surprise is once it gets there.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into breaking news, which will be Alberta. Eventually, we're going to make a chapter marker
Alberta section
for Alberta. We'll probably lead off with it.
Yes.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
And yes, in not terribly unexpected, but breaking news, Pierre Poilievre has decided to abandon everybody.
Well, yeah, let's kind of talk about this because we made a video on Pierre Poilievre the day. I spoke fairly good of him. I said I expect that Carney was going to put the question of independence to him, and I thought he might choose the nationalist side, but I hope he walked the tightrope. He's definitely no longer trying to walk a tightrope. He's coming down on the nationalist side. He's trying to put a lot of distance between him and the Alberta independence movement, which is a damn shame because when Pierre Poilievre needed a seat, he went running to Alberta and they backed him with everything they had, and he got elected fairly safely. But now that Alberta needs him, he's literally just turning his back on him.
Yeah, and I don't like him turning his back on them. I do maybe think in the back of my head it could be a Trumpian 4D chess move, but I don't think Pierre is that smart.
Well, and there are national politicians that are walking that tightrope, and I point to Danielle Smith. She is doing a fantastic job of allowing Albertans to have this vote, making concessions, making ways so they can have this vote in a timely manner, yet she's still playing national politics and supporting Pierre Poilievre. So she's doing a great job. I don't know why Pierre couldn't do something else, but this is the statement that came out right after our video came out. So if you do watch our video, it was before this statement. We did write something in the comments talking about this, just an update.
Yes, so Yukon Strong says, quote, thank you, Pierre Poilievre. This is a wake-up call. Conservative Party of Canada fence-sitters needed. Open admission, there is no federal solution. They're clearly okay with Western Canadians not having an equal vote and taking their money to pay for salaries or send overseas.
If any of your MPs were in favor of Alberta separatism, would they be allowed to remain in your caucus?
We are entirely a Federalist caucus. I have not had a single MP express that view. And as for myself, I'm a very proud Federalist, born and bred Albertan, and we will be fighting for a united Canada. And we hope that Quebecers, Albertans, and all Canadians will unify around our beautiful flag and our love of country.
After a statement like that, I think that's going to be the beginning of the end. He's going to start shedding votes, and they're going to start putting a lot of questions to him. Carney's kind of pulling away in the polls. If there is an election called, there's a good chance he's going to get a majority, and that kind of scares me because what happens to the Alberta independence movement if a national election is called first, Carney gets a majority? What kind of powers does that actually give Carney to stop this vote or play some shenanigans? It's really going to consolidate power with the Liberals. But one of the big reasons I'm kind of fed up with Poilievre here, and I'm having a new strategy for Canadian conservative federalism, is I'm seeing Reform UK in the UK who had solid first principles, sounded a lot like Poilievre and a lot of other conservative parties. But as they're gaining more power, they're trying to make this big tent movement and they're liberalizing and going away from a lot of their first principles. Rupert Lowe, I believe his name is starting a new party because Reform UK is literally abandoning the voters at this point.
And it's the same thing we continue to see across the Commonwealth too, where conservative parties just continue along the oxymoronic progressive conservatives, which is what is happening right now in Canada. And Pierre did have the opportunity to purge those and get real conservatives, but it's too scary because it would lose him people that are just there to be there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't vote for Pierre. If you're a milquetoast conservative and you kind of like what he's saying, or you're middle of the road, maybe he is for those voters. But my strategy for real conservatives is vote for these small parties like the PPC or 1BC if that appeals to you. And then if Pierre Poilievre can win a minority government, he can rule through a coalition, and he's going to have to cooperate with the other much more conservative minority parties. Those minority parties, if they're conservative, will also pull Pierre back to the conservative wing. Right now, all the power is kind of in the liberal sphere, so he becomes more and more and more liberal over time. We've seen what happened to the transgender movement and the transgendered vote within the conservative caucus and the conservative meetup they had.
And also climate change policies, everything that most conservatives or staunch conservatives would say, especially Albertans, I will say, don't vote for that, or that is not part of what why we're voting for you, has now become also part of what they always go for.
I was a big supporter of Pierre, and I said in multiple videos, if he turns his back on the Alberta independence movement, I'm going to turn my back on him. He hasn't totally turned his back, and if there's enough uprising, maybe he'll come back and try to walk that tightrope like Danielle Smith is doing, and I hope he does. But as of right now, with that statement, I expect him to go further and further away from the independence movement, especially because he tried to move his riding, which was absolutely ridiculous.
But I'll also say, like, people who hope if they vote conservative and Alberta stays, then there could be some change, even with a minority government. It'll take more than 10 years to reassess and undo the destruction that the Liberals did of Canada. I mean, it's been encoded into legislation now.
Now is the absolute time for Alberta to vote for independence and vote for freedom. If they don't do it now, and even if they do try to do it now, if Mark Carney gets this majority government, I don't know what kind of monkey wrench she's going to kind of throw in here, but eventually they're going to try to get rid of the ability to have a vote for separatism. There's a lot of energy behind this movement right now, a big groundswell, not just in Canada, but internationally. So they need to take the opportunity now and really make this thing happen. And I've been noticing a lot of censorship from the federal government. What do I mean? We've been doing a lot of videos on the Alberta independence movement, and the comments are actually flooded with people, mainly from Edmonton, that are saying, I haven't seen a petition. I don't know where to go for this petition. And I remember when we were doing the trucker convoy, that's kind of how we started out. A lot of the protests and things and the locations for the protests were being censored online in Canada. I think they're trying to do the same thing for this Alberta petition.
Yeah, and I do think that the leaders of the independence movement and those that are involved do need to start finding creative ways to continue to get that information out, especially now that we're seeing the mainstream media, but also probably the federal government purposefully blocking a lot of the information going out to people that do want to be involved and do want to do something about it.
Well, and Alberta has the best leadership of any of the independence movements, whether that's Saskatchewan, Quebec, or possibly even BC. There's something uprising there, but Alberta has Jeffrey Rath, they have Keith Wilson, they have Marty up north, they have a ton of independent content creators that are supporting them from Alberta and even outside of Alberta. We left Vancouver, Canada, and we now live in Mexico because I lost faith in the federal government.
And I'm from Mexico. That's why we live in Mexico.
But the one good thing about that is if Carney manages to bring censorship laws into Canada and start really throttling independence movement videos and content, we're going to be able to continue to speak from Mexico about this.
And hopefully the Albertans and some Canadians can still get the information somehow. Probably have to start using VPNs like in UK as well. But let's see the one leader that does speak up still. He's not perfect, obviously, but Maxime Bernier has continued to bash Pierre Poilievre, and especially now.
And I'll say this, I was avoiding these flip-flopping videos of Pierre Poilievre. There is a lot of them out there because he has changed his position quite a few times. Let's just see what it is and we'll talk about it a little bit. But since he came out with that statement kind of moving away from the independence movement, I'm no longer going to shy away from these videos. He brought him up. He kind of brought it on himself at this point.
Maxime Bernier says, quote, Pierre panders to ethnic groups. Who is the real Pierre? This one or the new one? Either way, he can't be trusted.
So I want to expand express entry to include more occupations and more industries so that we can quickly attract newcomers to fill jobs that Canadians cannot fill. You have an employer who's put out an ad, can't fill a job, they should be able to quickly bring in a skilled newcomer. And if that newcomer comes and succeeds here, the path to permanency should be a short one, very quick. Path to having permanent residency and then eventual citizenship should be very quick. Finally, I think we need an easier path for temporary foreign workers to go on to become permanent residents. So I want to expand.
Yeah, and whether it's conversion therapy laws, green laws, environmental laws, or immigration, there are multiple videos of Pierre Poilievre flip-flopping on these issues. I was willing to forgive and forget. No more. I mean, especially after this last Conservative caucus where he was trying to keep out content creators that were supporting the Alberta independence movement. Mm-hmm. And it was a little bit of an elitist conference where it was $1,800 to get in and you had to be invited. I mean, this isn't your average Conservative that's going to be able to afford to get in. They kind of want to rally the wagons and close up any kind of debate that's in there.
Funnily enough, also, he's talking there about express entry, and the federal government just announced, and Immigration Canada just announced that they're expanding their express entry program for skilled workers, but they changed the definitions of what a skilled worker means. I lived in Canada for, a bit more than 13 years, still not a citizen. I wasn't able to. I went to university there, I worked there, I pay taxes, and yet, for some reason, I don't fall into whatever they're looking for because... Yeah. Reasons, I guess. Still waiting and still working on it, which is insane. Again, after 13 years, but whatever. Let's move on to Marty up north.
Well, once they see your videos, you're definitely not getting it.
Probably.
So maybe if Alberta is successful, you can get Alberta citizenship.
From Marty up north, quote, Carney can taste his majority. He can get to it with a few more floor crossers, but that's not what he wants. He's looking at the polls and he can see that the Conservatives are losing support. You know, he wants an election, but he doesn't want to call one. His best bet, let his government get defeated and have the Governor General call an election.
Yeah, and we did a video on Marty up north that was quite successful. Marty is a real true blue Albertan, and he is on the ground getting petitions, doing debates. I absolutely love his debates. He's calling people out on the national level. Nationalists do not want to debate this issue, but Marty is kind of forcing it on them. So good on him. If you haven't seen that video, go take a look. But this is a little bit longer of a clip, but I like what he has to say. So we're going to kind of listen to the whole thing and pause it throughout there. You can fast forward through the first 20 seconds, I think.
Okay. Fast forward first.
There you go.
Okay.
In some drifts in the driveway that I had to go clear, and now today it's like minus 25. So not canvassing outside today and not running outside. I'm actually on my treadmill. Just want to comment, just look at the news. You know, that's what I do. I get on my treadmill and I read Twitter and X and stuff like that. And I just saw that there's another Edmonton Conservative MP who's crossing the floor. So like that, what is that, 3 now? And then if I look, and yesterday's comments by Poilievre when he was asked, are there any separatist leaning MPs in your caucus? And he boldly said, no, we're a federalist party, including himself. He declared himself as a proud Alberta-born federalist. Like, there's a guy I'd love to debate. I would love to debate Pierre Poilievre. Like, Pierre, tell me how Alberta benefits from staying in Confederation and be bold, like do the sales pitch. But and I don't even think he could do it, right? So I think that's kind of interesting. I think he lost votes when he said that yesterday, because in my day-to-day dealings with canvassers and people who come to sign, I often ask people like about their views on Confederation, but what would they do if there was an election in the short term before we become independent? And not half, but a good portion, maybe 30%, a quarter, say that they would spoil their ballot or vote for something else. So they're not going to vote for the Conservatives. So I mean, that vote, and that's a reality, right? That's
And
why
pause
the
it there.
Conservatives should be nervous.
And yeah, I had the same reaction. I was actually a huge Poilievre supporter, and as long as he could walk the line by being a nationalist but still supporting the independence movement, I was going to support him full-heartedly. Yesterday, completely crushed that idea for me, and now I'm going to vote for these smaller parties like the PPC if they're running in certain ridings, and then force Pierre Poilievre to have a coalition with these smaller parties if he wants to rule.
Nervous. I've said this before. If Alberta leaves, you'll never have a Conservative government in Canada ever again because our 2 million votes carry too much weight. And so the Conservatives, Ottawa has a lot, Pierre has a lot to lose if they, like, the Conservative Party's done if they lose Alberta. Conversely, the Liberals would benefit from losing Alberta because then they would always have a government in Ottawa that would be Liberal. So for Carney, the question is, does he want perpetual power or does he really want to, keep us in Confederation so he can continue to have his golden goose, right? So I don't know. But then when I look at what's going on, generally speaking right now, to me, it looks purely like Carney is getting ready to lose whatever confidence vote comes his way in the next few months. And I think the most likely confidence vote will be won in April for the 2026, 2027 budget, right? Carney's not going to just call a snap election. He'll look ugly if he does that. But he knows that if he gets defeated, then a snap election falls on his lap. And looking at the polls right now, like he's projected to take like a majority of the seats. So Carney will do everything in the coming months.
I really don't like Carney, but he's setting this thing up well to get a majority government. If by some miracle he only pulls off a minority again, he's not going to call it. He's going to make the Conservatives and these other parties call it so he can play to that in the election. But he's going to use TDS and he's going to use nationalists versus independents, and he's going to keep putting these questions to Poilievre, and the divide's going to get bigger and bigger. Man, I think if Mark Carney only gets a minority by some miracle in the snap election, then he will let Alberta leave. But if he gets a minority, he's going to try every dirty trick in the book so nobody can ever leave Canada again.
To get defeated, which is going to be hard because the Conservatives don't want to defeat him, right? And it's a two-horse race right now. It's the Conservatives and the Liberals because the NDP have disintegrated. They're non-existent, and there's still a little Bloc Québécois, but it's a two-party race. And neither of them wants to launch an election, but one of them wants an election, and that's the Liberals. So Carney's going to do a bunch of things to try and get defeated. He's going to jack up spending. He's going to keep like the GST rebates that he's rebranded as the food security thing. He'll keep doing that. He'll blow money there. He'll blow money on military spending. He'll increase salaries of people. He'll do bad deals. He'll jack up the budget, and he'll make it virtually impossible for the other parties to defeat him, but he'll do it. He appointed that Janice chick to be our negotiator. He's going to continue to antagonize
you can leave
Trump
it there. And I will say this. If Mark Carney only gets that minority, he's going to let Alberta go and then try to call another election, and that would be a guaranteed majority government for him. So he's playing kind of 4D chess. He's got the first election planned out, the Alberta separatist election planned out, and then an election after that if needed. I don't see any way Carney doesn't get a majority here, and that's a shame because he's absolutely going to drive Canada off a cliff.
And even if an election or snap election or something else moves federally in Canada, I don't even know if most Albertans even care anymore, will even show up to vote in either way, because especially now with Poilievre giving those statements and making it very clear where he stands, I don't think he can backtrack. Even if he tries, most people heard him loud and clear. So I don't even know if they'd have any votes from Alberta, or most Albertans that do want to become independent.
Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I don't know what happens if Carney gets a majority. Is there a way he can stop the separatists from even leaving?
I don't think it's ever happened. Yeah, so I don't know.
But if he, that might be one thing that even if you don't agree with Poilievre, maybe come out to the polls and vote for him, because you need your the Alberta independence election is going to be most likely take place after the federal election if they call a snap election. One more thing, the Conservatives are going to be forced to kind of call this election. Why? Because there's another Conservative candidate crossed over the aisle to the Liberal Party. So all the Liberals need now are 3 more seats, and there are 3 by-elections within their district. So they're expected to win those, and then they have a majority government. So they may need to call that election, even if they think they're going to lose it before these by-elections, so the Liberals can't get a majority, or they can try to resist them as much as possible.
And yet one of the few more federal leaders that still continues to walk that tightrope is Danielle Smith, and she has been able to kind of convey why so many Albertans are sick and done with the federal government.
And she's been absolutely fantastic. I wish Poilievre was more like her, or she was in Poilievre's place, because she's walking this thing perfectly. We have a video coming out about Danielle Smith, and I can't say
tomorrow
any more good things about her. If Alberta's independence does go the right way, I wouldn't mind seeing her run for leader of the party.
And we have seen her a little bit, not flip-flop, but she did start saying that statement of, sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. I think she's understood a little bit that isn't working, and she should.
Well, I think it is working. I think it works. I like the statement, and it allows her to play the nationalist side as well as continuing to help the independence movement. They're going to need her if this vote goes the right way. She's going to have to press these negotiations on the federal government, because if they vote for independence, what that triggers is a negotiation, and she's the one that's going to have to press that negotiation forward.
This is from Concerned Canadian.
For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services Albertans and Canadians need. And what's worse, Ottawa continues onward with more destructive policies. For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services.
Okay, and that being said, I picked that video specifically not because it's the newest video, it's a little bit older, but that's the kind of statements Poilievre needed to come out with to kind of walk that line, but put it on a national level, that the government has cost us a decade. They cost us trillions of dollars, not just because they went against Alberta, but because they're sticking those same policies on all the provinces.
And for all the provinces, the solutions that Mark Carney has lately come up with, like that grocery rebate or whatever they renamed it now, is insane. And that is how socialist and communist governments work. We'll give you a little bit so you shut up and stop complaining. We won't fix the root issues, and you'll continue to suffer and keep being dependent on us, on the federal government, and you'll do whatever we say.
Well, he's trying to buy these votes. If grocery prices go through the roof, he's going to give a tax rebate saying, oh, this is for your groceries, and he's not going to fix the problem. I don't think that's really going to buy as many votes as he thinks, but this the stance that Pierre Poilievre took yesterday with nationalism, I think is going to maybe lead way to Carney having a majority government. I mean, he's going to be able to pose a million questions to Poilievre now and poke the bear. Do you agree with First Nations, or do you agree with the independence movement? Oh, what about this issue in the independence movement? And then he's going to make Poilievre say it every time. And every time he goes against the independence movement and the Albertans that stuck with him and elected him in that riding, it's really going to dig the knife into Albertans. And it's going to feel like Poilievre betrayed him.
But I do hope that if that is the case, and if that does happen, the knife keeps being dug in, I do hope that just rallies more support around, and then more conviction to actually go vote and get away from Canada, get rid of Canada.
Yeah, Poilievre's best option here, if he's going to pick the nationalist side, which it looks like that's what he picked, is just complete honesty. Say, if you don't vote for me, Carney's going to get a majority, and he's going to try to stop that the independence movement from even happening.
But maybe that's also what Pierre wants. So now it's 2 against 1, essentially.
It could. I mean, I've always liked Pierre, and only recently, since he's come out with this statement, is it too much for me?
Speaking of 2 against 1, the canvassers continue being attacked. From Alberta Radio, quote, my rant from last night regarding our canvassers being attacked, the nonsense whining by the left, and how government uses its divisive tactics.
Yeah, and we'll just listen to a little bit of this, but there was a bunch of clips, and if people are getting attacked on the ground that are canvassers, which there was quite a few clips of this, this one was 18 minutes. Another one was 10 minutes. Try to make a secondary clip that's 1 or 2 minutes so shows like this have an easy time of putting it on. Because I must have found 6 clips like this, but they were all extremely long.
And the shorter you can make a video, the easier it can become viral and can be shared and can be digested by those who you need to be watching.
What's going on, everybody? Figured come on real quick, do a quick live in light of the video that's going around that Alberta Proud shared regarding AJ Braun. Now, you know, last week my wife and I got some dude tried to run us off the Henday, followed us from a place where we were getting signatures, and then targeted us, trying to ram our car, trying to get us, you know, cut us off. And then we have AJ Braun, who's First Nations, and AJ. And these radical First Nations individuals really, this needs to stop, this behavior, because I will say this, you know, as a person who grew up with tradition, who grew up on res, you know, and grew up with First Nations all around me my entire life, not once did we ever resort to that kind of behavior and target people just because we disagree over an opinion. Look it, you know, you guys seem to think that you own things that you don't own.
Okay, you can
right?
leave it there. And I just wanted to kind of bring this clip up because it's indicative of about 6 other clips I've seen where people are resorting to violence. It looks like they're starting to be paid protesters on the ground for the nationalist movement. It looks like there's a lot of people coming off the reservation and creating violence with canvassers as well. I think Mark Carney is going to really try to use the upper echelons of the First Nations to kind of go against the independence movement. And I think the truth of the matter is a lot of the money is being stolen by the elites in the First Nations, and the First Nations people themselves, the people that are actually part of the tribe, a lot of those people actually support the independence movement. We've profiled some of those people.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, we were seeing what's happening with the ICE, anti-ICE in the U.S., and I do think that unfortunately, this violence will continue to escalate in Canada also and in Alberta as it warms up too. So as people are more able to stay outside for longer, we'll see, because we already know the tactics. We've been seeing it in the US, in the UK, in Australia, all over the place. When people disagree with you from the left, what they use is violence. So I do think that needs to be, and of course, unfortunately, the government won't do anything about it, and they won't claim. They'll claim that the ones that are doing the harassing are the canvassers, which already happened in Vancouver.
You don't have to look to Australia. You don't have to look to the UK. You can look to Canada and the truckers protest and what happened there. Remember the guy holding the Nazi flag that was going all over? It looked like he was a plant, and they had a camera guy with him.
But not even that. Like I'm talking, for example, Billboard Chris, when he's gotten attacked multiple times. He's an activist that champions going against the mutilation of children.
And we used to work with him. We helped build his website, so we always profile him a lot, and he is doing a magnificent job. But yeah, the cops don't do anything.
No, they blamed him for the attacks. They said, "Oh, you need to be away because you're the one causing disturbance. You're the one causing distress." So now, and he was barred from walking around the Vancouver Art Gallery for like 6 months because some crazy lunatics attacked him, and then he tried to defend himself, and the police saw it and said, "Oh, it's you that is the problem." So I don't put it past them from doing this to canvassers as well, if they do start getting attacked and people become more violent. So be careful out there, please.
Yeah, this is only the beginning. And if Poilievre is taking the nationalist side and independent pollsters and people trying to get signatures start to get assaulted, I don't think Poilievre's even going to say a word. Now, Danielle Smith, I hope she does, and I think she will.
Yeah, and I hope she points the RCMP or the local police in the right direction.
Well, and she's been running that province fairly well, and she's the one controlling the police and a lot of the stuff within that province. So I hope she gets a hold on this situation before it starts to get out of control.
We do have another regarding this same line from Marty up north. Says, quote, I share some thoughts on canvassing for the Alberta Independent Petition. Harassing or intimidating canvassers or people in line to sign the petition is illegal and won't be tolerated. Unfortunately, we know a lot of things are illegal in Canada, and yet the police look the other way. Yeah,
it looks like they're censoring where to even find these petitions, number one, online, and then number two, they're sending people out to harass people that are trying to sign in person. Mm-hmm. So
you guys are probably wondering why the get up, why my fur hat, why my big oil field jacket. Well, winter roared back in with a vengeance today. So I don't know if I'll actually go canvassing today. I definitely got to go and plow the driveway. Maybe I'll find time to canvassing. You know, it's not the cold that bothers me. It's the wind and the papers getting wet and stuff like that. But let's talk about canvassing real quick, okay? So some people out there are paranoid about presenting themselves as canvassers. And some people are paranoid about signing the petition. And I'll talk about both, okay? So this is my canvassing badge, okay? So you can see on the back, it's an official document by Elections Alberta. In order to get this badge, this is a public document. So while I'm collecting signatures, if I misbehave, somebody can record this number and report me to Elections Alberta, and they'll do some sort of
for a quick
investigation.
second. Yeah, and I was talking to some people down here in Mexico because there's new parties trying to get representation here. But if you do sign the petition, take a picture of this badge. You want to make sure that these are official canvassers and not people that they're planting out there to get fake signatures to kind of sabotage the vote. This happened to RFK Jr. in the United States. It also happens in Mexico as well. So they do send plants out there to try to kind of hamstring the actual authentic votes and authentic canvassers.
So it's by the book. And I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to get this badge, which means the information that you share with me is confidential. I can't photocopy it. I can't use it for my own benefit. I can't use it to find, a phone number for to contact somebody for other political reasons or whatever. All I'm allowed to do is verify that they're a citizen, add a few details about themselves, and then get them to sign, and that's it. And when the petition is over, the signatures will be counted. They'll be handed over to the chief elections officer, and then they'll all be destroyed. Okay, so I'm canvassing now. I'm right-leaning for sure, conservative. I'm very conservative, but officially, this petition is a citizens' initiative act. It's one citizen who's collecting signatures to petition the government on a question. We're all allowed to do that. Anybody could start a petition. So Mitch Sylvester started this petition. And for all intents purposes, this petition is nonpartisan. You can be left-leaning, right-leaning, socialist.
Yeah, and pause it for a second. And that is a good point. They have had previous petitions on like daylight savings hour and things like this. This is just another one. But Danielle Smith really laid the groundwork for this particular petition, and good on her so far.
Anarchist, you can be young, old, whatever. You can come and sign the petition asking the government of Alberta to consider a referendum on an independence question. That's all you're doing, right? So it's nonpartisan. And coming by and attacking me while I'm collecting no signatures, that's harassment. So I posted a video the other day, and people said I'm only showing one side of the video. I'll show you going forward. I'll try and capture some of these engagements online, but I'm not kidding. I've had 4 people.
And also say, do capture if you're canvassing or know people that are canvassing who get attacked or who are being harassed by others. It is very important to have that video because, again, you might have to escalate it. And if the police say, no, it was you causing the disturbance, then you have evidence, which helped Billboard Chris in some circumstances, to say, no, look at what actually happened before and after.
So far come to me. So that guy the other day, he drove by, rolled his window down and said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "We're collecting signatures for a petition to convince the government of Alberta to hold a referendum." His exact words, or paraphrasing, were like, "You guys are a bunch of fucking idiots. You're clowns. This will never work, blah, blah, blah." So then I pull out my badge like this, and I told that guy, "Buddy, you're harassing a canvasser. Please move on." He moved down the road, turned around, and I'm on a gravel road, and I looked at him. I'm like, "Oh, smokes, this doesn't look good." So I grabbed my camera, and I held the camera to him so that he could see, because I thought he was just going to drive past me full speed, spew gravel at me and whoever else happened to be there, right? But the camera calmed him down. So then he pulled up and he rolled down his window, and you can hear him say, "I just want to ask you 3 questions." Sorry, buddy, that's not how it works, okay? We don't engage in a conversation by you coming up to me and going, "You're a fucking idiot." And then when I call you out and show this badge and say that you're violating the law, he suddenly calmed down. I get that. He calmed down at this point, but at that point, I want no engagement with that guy because he started
and pause it for a quick second. And yeah, I understand Marty up north is quickly becoming a social media influencer as well as a canvasser, but it's very important. He's playing a very important role because he can tell these stories. He's getting video on the ground. If people that signed the petition are comfortable interviewing after, he is interviewing people to make sure the general public knows It's a diverse range of people that are signing this petition.
Because they have been using that whole, oh, it's racist, it's this, it's that, it's only certain kinds of people signing it. No, it's a
Yeah,
very
so
different.
while he is doing this petition, he's actually doing 3 or 4 different things that can help the Alberta independence movement. So good on Marty, and I'm really glad we profiled him at this point, and he is getting a bigger and bigger profile.
And also anybody else brave enough or who also wants to start doing this or is canvassing but doesn't know how to spread out more information, you can also, I mean, X is free, YouTube is free, you can also start just filming and giving your opinion, and that's how a movement starts.
Described as a violent, harassing manner. Now, some people have come by, been disrespectful, and I've said, you're harassing me, and then they change their tone, and then they become more respectful, and I'm willing to have that conversation. But if you show up to me and say I'm an asshole right off the bat, that's not a good way to initiate a conversation. So usually those people I wave, show them the badge and say, you're doing a great job of winning the hearts and minds of Albertans. Now, I also want to talk about the fact that this is alarming. This bugs me because some people are trying to make, scare people, saying that the information is going to be shared and so forth and so forth. Like I said, it's not. So encourage people to come sign, because one thing that's really disturbing is that there are people that are afraid to exercise their democratic right. They don't want to be seen signing. Now, that's interesting. Now, some is very legitimate. The other day I shared this story online. I had two
pause
ladies
it for a
from...
quick second. And there has been RCMPs. It's been reported that there's police officers taking names at a lot of these rallies and tried to videotape these things, and they want the identities. We've seen at the trucker convoy that they were canceling people's bank accounts. This is the last opportunity. You're going to have to stand up for freedom and independence. I'm putting my identity online. I'm firmly with the independence movement. I'm not making any qualms about it at this point. If they don't want to let me back into Canada or they want to try to cancel my bank account, go right ahead.
Brazil, if I remember correctly. And they came by, they supported it, but they said they don't want to sign it because they're scared to sign it. They said that in their country, nothing's confidential, and if you sign a document like that, you can end up on a watch list by the government. Fully respect that. Not going to force them. I had another lady who came by, an older lady, Canadian lady, asked some great questions. And as a Canadian, a long-time, full-time Canadian, she saw what happened in the trucking convoy and other things. She asked me about the procedure for keeping things confidential. And I could only give her the speech that I gave you. At the end of the day, she's like, I don't want to sign. I'm too scared. I'm like, again, I respect that. But as a Canadian, I find that absolutely discouraging.
But also, isn't it insane that the government, federal government, the Liberals have got us to this point where people are scared of exercising their democratic rights to sign or vote or do whatever that should be what keeps a democracy functional? It's insane that we've gotten to the point in Canada, other countries as well, but especially in Canada, where people are scared just to sign a petition or say that they support X or Y. It shouldn't be that way, but they've allowed it to get to this point. And I think that has to be hammered into people's heads.
Well, yeah, and I also do want to say we're going to continue that video because it's a very important video. But I do want to say if you're one of those few people that do have the balls and the backbone to sign the petition but can't find it, it's very important that you keep trying to find one of these petitions to sign, because for every one person that's going to sign the politician, like he said, there's going to be 4 or 5 that are too scared but want to. But if this thing goes to an actual vote, those 4 or 5 people that are scared will go out because there's going to be a lot more secrecy to that thing.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to take longer.
That people are afraid to sign because of repercussions from their government. And then there are people who are scared of repercussions from their employer or their neighbors, right? I had one guy come over to me, and it was obvious that he was a City of Calgary transit worker. He had his uniform on, and he was holding his hand over his badge. I'm not taking pictures of you, buddy. I'm not doing anything. I don't care. But he was honest to me. He's like, no, I want to sign, but I want to minimize the likelihood that somebody would know what I'm doing. So that's insane that somebody working in...
Pause it for a quick second. And why are all these things like this? They canceled people's bank accounts during the trucker protest. I was fired because I didn't want to get a jibby jab in Canada from 2 different jobs. Like, these fears are there not because it's in people's head and some conspiracy theory. It's because the Canadian government has done this recently in just the last few years.
And also allowed their lunatic followers to go actually harass and do violence to people that they don't agree with, which should have been stopped right then and there.
Capacity has to self-center. I also had a young man who drove by who was in a company truck. And so he respected his employer and he didn't want any bad publicity for his employer. So he drove his truck further away, parked his truck, walked all the way back, and then said, can we do this as quickly as possible? I'm like, it takes about a minute to sign the signature. So no big deal. So it's sad that there are people who have to self-censor. But to those people, there is a website to promote this. If you go to the Stay Free Alberta, somebody who's afraid of being seen in public signing the signature, the petition, we have a means to send people to your house and you can sign in the privacy of your house. And my last comment is, this badge shows that I'm about, number 3364. There's at least 7,000 canvassers right now. We'd love to get 10,000, but if we get 20, even better, because the petition right now is a rehearsal. It's helping us get organized, coordinate the volunteers, get better at campaigning, doing all those things. So if you want to, I encourage everyone, go to Stay Free Alberta and get your canvasser badge.
Okay,
because
you can leave it there.
Badge,
and thank you for everybody that does live in Alberta and has come out and signed this petition. It's going to take everybody to kind of stand up. And if you're kind of on the fence and you're scared, I do kind of urge you to go find one of these places you can sign and to sign, because if this thing fails and Carney gets a majority government and shuts down any kind of independence movement in the future, a lot of people are going to be kicking themselves in the ass. We left Canada. I lost confidence in the national government already. We live in Mexico. I don't make any qualms about it. That's why I support this movement so much. My promise is, for everybody that did sign that petition, we will keep making content right up until this vote comes down. And if the vote goes the right way, we'll keep covering Alberta and the rebuilding of a new nation.
And we used to live in Vancouver, BC. And
Yeah.
I lived there for about 13 years. But again, we did support the trucker convoy. We have been involved and engaged in all of this. And I will say to the organizers of both the petition, the canvassers, find ways, and I'm still thinking of them, so that's why I don't suggest anything specifically, but find ways to get the information out there, even if channels like social media or the internet in general start censoring these kinds of things, because we can go back to, the non-digital era and just talk to each other as well.
Yeah, and I will say this. It looks like he says he's going to be happy if they can get 10 or 15,000 canvassers. The original goal was 50,000 canvassers. It doesn't look like they're going to reach that at this point. So it is very important that if you want to sign this thing, you're going to have to do a little bit of investigative work and maybe go find them, because there is a ton of censorship online. The amount of comments from people from Edmonton saying they can't find...
Or they didn't know that they were going to be signing at this place at this time, etc. And it doesn't mean that they're not trying to get the information out there, but you never know how shadow banned in some ways, or if the post gets taken down itself. Sometimes you don't even know, so you're expecting people and people can't see the post and it becomes like a broken telephone.
Well, when we were at the BC border, that's kind of where we did our truckers protest. There was BC border protests for truckers. There was RCMP on roofs with video cameras trying to get everybody. So I know there's fear, but people need to stand up even if there is fear, because it's only going to get worse if Carney gets a majority.
And to get rid of that fear and move away from it, separate from it, and become independent from it. But this next one, you're the one that gathers the story, so I didn't know how to get into this. But from Table Salt, quote, Edmonton, Tim Hortons worker admits that she is not even being paid modern day slaves for citizenship. This is why teen unemployment is at 20%. And this is happening all over Canada.
All over Canada. And Tim Hortons is one of the big violators of this, or one of the big people that is just hiring mass amounts of immigrants to fill their workforce. And it's repressing wages for regular citizens.
But also lying to these immigrants too, and making them promises that then they cannot fulfill or are not fulfilled, so the immigrants leave.
Well, they're in a very vulnerable situation, and if they get recruited and they're known, they're gonna maybe make them work overtime and not try to pay them and stuff like this. We do know that the government is paying 30% of their wages, at least in BC. We've covered that story, and that's why a lot of these corporations prefer to hire immigrants rather than Canadian citizens.
We are struggling here. You don't even know how our mental peace is harassed here.
They pay for do your job, right? I just
They are not even paying us.
the only thing.
Did you just hear that? They're not even paying us at Tim Hortons? What's going on?
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of profile it. As much as a lot of people in Alberta are upset, a lot of immigrants are upset too. Before we left Canada, I was fired for a few jobs for not getting a jibby jab, and I had to get much lower paying jobs just to save up so we can move to Mexico. And I worked
for 4 years. I mean, we decided to leave 4 years before we actually did.
I worked with a ton of immigrants, and man, you've seen things change. By the time just before we left, immigrants were coming in. I was working at the Vancouver Art Gallery at one point. They would come in, say, this was a lie I was sold, this immigration to Canada. Within 2 months, they were wanting to go back home. It used to be they would try to stay to at least get their PR and then go back home, because a lot of the immigrants that actually came owned houses back where they were from. But it was a quick turnaround. Canada's not even able to hold their immigrants because they're selling everybody a lie.
Yeah, they're selling this Canadian dream that doesn't exist anymore. Again, I got to Canada during, Stephen Harper, during Stephen Harper, and then the Liberals came in with Trudeau, and year after year, I saw how Vancouver, but Canada in general, degraded further and further and further, to the point where I did say, well, it seems like just going back home to Mexico, going back home to my family, to people I know, is going to be a lot better than trying to and never achieving, for example, getting a house or being able to start a family or trusting the government and the public school system to educate the kids that I want to have, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the immigrants are saying the same thing. I know so many people that went there, studied, did university, got their even citizenship, and they said, it's impossible to stay here. But the saddest part is the immigrants like the ones you were talking about that sell off everything back home so they can get to Canada. And then when they get there, their dreams are completely shattered, and or they become abused by the employment system that is in Canada as well, that takes advantage of a lot of these immigrants. And that is something that's not talked about. They just want to virtue signal as to how many new people they can get in.
Yeah, and I just want to say something else. We moved to Mexico because you were from Mexico, but Mexico is actually run by a far left ideologue, even more far left than probably Mark Carney. But she's cooperating with the United States behind the scenes for the economic good of the country. She realizes she doesn't want the country to fall off a cliff. Mark Carney is doing the exact opposite.
But also because I think the U.S. government has a lot more blackmail on her and her party and her predecessor than maybe. But I mean, Mark Carney, I'm sure the U.S. also has a lot of blackmail on him.
But I will also say this. If you do see Claudia Sheinbaum, she's the president of Mexico. Trump allows her to talk tough and say a lot of rhetoric against the Trump administration as long as she cooperates behind the scenes, because he realizes that she has a left-leaning base. But one out of every $4 they're clawing back from China because of their trade war, they're investing in Mexico and manufacturing here that they don't necessarily want or doesn't work within their infrastructure in the United States.
And Trump has been using the Kissinger doctrine by allowing her to say, oh, sovereign Mexico, we're not going to let the U.S. come in, and then the cooperation that goes on behind closed doors, but because he also knows, and speaking of the USMCA, that Mexico is a lot more attractive for the US for manufacturing and for trade than Canada has become and has been made into.
Yeah, and I'm mainly just bringing up that point to say Carney doesn't have to drive Canada off a cliff, but it seems like that's exactly what he's going to do, because there's a perfect example of Mexico having a left-leaning president and her not driving them off an economic cliff.
But let's see some of the plans that the government has announced. The Canadian government has announced lately to make things better for all Canadians. Not really. From Table Salt, quote, the government of Canada said to announce federal investments for businesses in Alberta tomorrow. That sounds like they're trying to pander, but there's a catch. You have to have high melanin levels in your skin. It's for people of color, I will say, so YouTube doesn't get mad, only.
BIPOC.
Yeah.
BIPOC. Is what they call.
BIPOC. So yeah, it's the Black I can't even say that word, entrepreneurship program. Do you want me to read what it is?
This is just absolutely ridiculous. Mark Carney's going to tout how he's investing in Alberta and why do they want to leave. It's programs like this. You're not investing in Canadian citizens. You're trying to implant a new culture into Alberta and then give them a bunch of free money. So they're going to be the successful ones, and
But then be able to show the numbers and say, yes, we have invested into Alberta. We are doing something to listen to the concerns of the Albertans that want to separate. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, and part of the reason he wants to have that is one of the big strategies I believe that's going to happen if this vote actually takes place is before this vote takes place, they're going to try to flood Alberta with a bunch of immigrants to try to rig the vote.
Then I don't know if you wanted this next story next, because it's about Europe. I don't know if it's connected to Canada. Stephen Crowder.
Oh, yeah. This was in the beginning. He talks a little bit about it. Stephen Crowder is actually originally from Canada, now lives in the United States. Let's just kind of hear what he has to say here. The beginning's relatable, but...
From Stephen Crowder, quote, genuine refugees from horrors like World War II have flocked to our shores and flourished and prospered because you're allowed to say what you think is true.
You have too many Canadians who are happy that truckers had their bank account frozen. I don't know that there can be a populist movement of people fighting for free speech in Canada across the whole country because there aren't enough people. Do you think we're at that tipping point in Europe? Do you think it's a majority? And do you think that what you're doing could have an impact to push it toward a majority? Because I think that Canada outside of Alberta perhaps is a lost cause.
Okay, pause it there. And that's all I wanted to kind of play there. And I completely agree. Outside of Alberta, I think is a lost cause. That's why we left Canada. It was a massive life decision to leave Canada. We had to save for 4 years and really plan out how we were even going to do it. The fact that Alberta is actually standing up right now just warms my heart with joy. And I hope they're able to push this thing over the finish line.
But then again, when I think of the rest of Canada, it's going to take what, 10, 15 years,
It's not going to take 10 or 15 years.
It's not going
to happen.
Yeah.
If I thought it was any chance of happening, maybe I would have stayed. It's not going to happen at this point for Canada. Canada is becoming is a complete socialist country at this point. They're just a few steps away from communism. If Alberta does leave, I wouldn't be so shocked if it becomes far more socialist and then does march into communism.
Then do you want to intro this clip? From Marty up north, quote, Laura Babcock wants you to stop mocking her patriotic battle cry of elbows up. Hey, Laura, elbows down, you crazy lunatic, I'm going to say.
This was just a crazy clip. And these are the liberals in Canada. I mean, she's just
insane.
Insane, yeah.
I haven't seen this. So.
And this is the last clip for our Alberta section. And then we're
we'll
going
read
to
your comments.
Then we'll read some comments and then get into personality politics.
We're not only in a trade war, we might be in real war. And the last thing we need is for anybody to take our patriotic battle cry of elbows up against Canadians and mock it and put it down. When Pierre Poilievre says elbows down, he is echoing MAGA talking points and attacks on our country. You can criticize Mark Carney all you want. It's your job. But you don't have to do it by denigrating Canada's sense of power and purpose and patriotism in this critical moment for our sovereignty and our economy. We're not only in a trade war, we might be...
Because they don't have any. That's why
let it play one more time. Let it play one more time. I just find it so freaking amusing. Our war cry of elbows up, like, oh my God. Just the beginning.
In real war, and the last thing we need is for anybody to take our patriotic battle cry of elbows up.
Okay, leave it there. Our patriotic battle cry of elbows up. Mark Carney's going to drive Canada off an economic cliff because he doesn't want to deal with Donald Trump because he has Trump derangement syndrome and he's trying to win an election off the back of Donald Trump. Alberta has no problem trading with Donald Trump. Danielle Smith has a good relationship with the United States. Why don't Canadians see that? Just take the example of Alberta and put your differences aside and trade with your biggest trading partner to the south.
Yes. But now we are going to read your comments before we go into more general personality politics and then the rest of the world. Firstly, Kat Ann, hello, says, honestly, says, honestly, as a fifth generation Albertan, I no longer care about federal politics. Without Alberta's federal conservatives are cooked. Yeah. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think most Albertans that want to separate are going to even care about Poilievre.
But yeah, Poilievre knew what he was doing yesterday when he made that statement. And that was a step too far for me. And I've given him a lot of breathing room there. But after he went to Alberta, begged for a seat, they gave it to him and they supported him en masse. His districts, actually one of the big districts that is having outright independence marches and movements. Mm-hmm. And that's why he left. I mean, he got what he needed from him, and then he left.
Then Rod Dweller says, hello, says Pierre needed to pick a side and he picked the wrong side. But I understand he is a federalist and he needs to keep his job, but there is nothing any party can offer Alberta to stay in Confederation. And that's, again, yes, or it would take too long or it cannot be enough.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I'm just going to say this. I'm looking at Reform UK within the UK and the same thing is happening. They're becoming more and more and more liberalized. It's only a matter of time before Poilievre becomes Aaron O'Toole or a Doug Ford. I mean, yeah, it's going to take a few years, but he keeps compromising first principle after first principle in order to get East Coast voters. No more of it. If I were ever to vote in Canada again, I would vote for a real conservative party, even if it's small. If they win just a few seats, then that will make Poilievre have to make a coalition with those smaller parties.
I do think it's a lot of wishful thinking.
Yeah, just because you don't vote for Poilievre, you're not throwing away your vote, because if a smaller conservative party gets a couple of seats, they still have those seats to throw behind Poilievre for issues they agree with, and then they can take those votes away from Poilievre on issues that they don't agree with that are too liberal for them.
Rottweiler also says, it is time for Danielle Smith to get on the right side of history, and if she does not support separation, she is done forever. And I think it might be beneficial for her, because if when Alberta does separate and become independent, she could actually play an even bigger role there. And I think Pierre doesn't see, I mean, he needs it to be a federal support, so he cannot, I don't think he'd have any opportunity or chance within Alberta.
If she follows firmly on the independent side, Poilievre's going to kick her out of the caucus, and then Alberta's not going to have her to really push the negotiations forward if the vote goes the right way. So I'm fine with her kind of playing both sides as long as she behind the scenes supports the independence movement by getting these negotiations going, by pushing the vote forward, by stopping other votes that would derail it, which she did, which I do appreciate. So she's walking a very nice line right now. She knows how to walk that tightrope, and I don't mind it because we do need a nationalist that will support the independence movement behind the scenes, and she is doing that right now. On the other hand, social media influencers that aren't picking a side, I don't like it. There's a lot of major social media influencers that are Canadian that built their audience off a national Canadian audience, and if you hear them talk, they want to be in support of the independence movement, but they refuse to make videos on it or really speak out about it firmly because they don't want to lose any of their national audience, and then they don't want to be called traitors, and they don't want the federal government to censor them. So I'm firmly on Alberta independence side. I'm profiling other creators on our video section of the channel that are either on the independent side or I hope will land on that side.
Mr. Carter says, if Pierre said what Danielle Smith said, that would be insulting to voters in Ontario and Quebec. And yeah, again, it's that tightrope that he decided to fall on to fully one side.
Well, there was he had given a speech just before that, and he said, well, we should be asking Albertans what their grievances are. And he walked a good tightrope for a long time. And I said it was going to be hard for him to walk that tightrope, but I wanted him to walk it. The side he's come out on now, it's just too much. I'm still going to vote Conservative, but I would vote for smaller, real conservative parties, not fake conservatives that will put their vote behind Poilievre if he needs to build the coalition. But he's now firmly lost my vote.
And Mr. Carter also says, even if Pierre wins, we are all delaying the problem. Exactly. And he won't be able to get the solutions for all of Canada in the next ever, I would say.
Yeah, and as much as I'm saying I'm not going to vote Poilievre, that's not to say Poilievre won't serve a purpose. Maybe Albertans will see the big purpose to vote for Poilievre is to hold Mark Carney off from majority government. Again, if Carney gets a majority government, I'm not sure the legal ramifications if he's going to be able to stop this vote of independence.
Mm-hmm. And then, oh, that's a long name. I'm just going to say Sick. Sick says the floor crossing is a gift, and so will be a Carney majority government that cements Alberta independence. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just done. And then they're not doing anything to even try to keep Alberta in.
Well, I think it might be a super majority at this point because if they have the 3 by-elections and the Liberals barely pull off a majority, that's one thing, but it's putting the Conservatives and the other parties in a position before those 3 by-elections happen. They're probably going to want to call a snap election. And right now, the numbers are in massive favor of Carney. Carney does have this thing of nationalists versus the independence movement where Poilievre has picked a side. He has this TDS going for him. Even though the economy's falling off a freaking cliff, he's able to distract everybody with, oh, look at this, and then take everybody's money out of their back pocket. It's a freaking magic trick.
And sorry to everybody on RUMBLE. We are simulcasting now on RUMBLE, but for some reason it hadn't connected just up to now.
Oh, okay.
So, hello, Rumble. Rottweiler says, we have a Chinese problem and we have a Carney and Janice using the Emergencies Act problem in Alberta.
There is a ton of problems all over Canada. Alberta actually has less problems than a lot of Canada, but they're about to have a lot more problems. Carney's going to start focusing in on them. There's going to be retribution for this independence movement even going forward. And people,
financially, I think Alberta is the one that's worse.
Yeah, people are going to need to stand strong, and they need to stand up for themselves, their freedoms, and their first principles.
And Prairie Rain, hello, says, I spoiled my ballot last election by writing Alberta first. Pierre is not a good candidate and would only delay Canada's collapse and discourage separatist movements. And that's what I'm saying. There is no way to fix it.
Yeah, it was interesting because I've been trying to find content creators to profile that I think are on the side of independence. And I've been going through their channels and I just want to see what their opinions are. So I'll put their name and then I'll put Alberta. or the independence movement, and they don't make any videos on it. They're freaking scared of it. And then I look what are their most popular videos? How did they build their channel? And it's all Pierre Poilievre. They built their channel off of Pierre Poilievre and a national conservative movement. So they're scared to speak on the issue. But when I watch their lives, they are indicating they want to support the independent Alberta movement. They're just scared to do it, I think, because they think they'll lose viewers and the federal government will censor them.
Mm-hmm. And hello Tal, says to Rottweiler, in my opinion, they should have kept the previous title. It was an honest name that stated the real seriousness of the act.
Oh.
The act to separate.
Yeah.
Remote viewer.
And I will say this, as much as Poilievre has really pissed me off with that last statement he made, he's still better than Erin O'Toole, and a lot of milquetoast conservatives will vote for him, and that's fine. I mean, as far as Canadian politicians go, maybe that's the best you're going to get on a national scale, honestly, because what did you get before him? Erin O'Toole, and what are you going to get after him? Probably a freaking Doug Ford.
Erin the Tool. Remote viewer, you're always talking about remote viewing.
I watch a lot of remote viewing conspiracy theory
He's more
stuff.
on that side. I'm more on the
Monroe Institute and stuff like that.
Remote viewer says, quote, Danielle Smith, WF member from 2006 to 2016.
Yeah,
wasn't Pierre as well?
There's a lot of questions about a lot of politicians, and a lot of people make it on that list that ended up they were put on that list to sabotage him. If she is or if she isn't, all I can do is judge her by her actions. And so far, she's allowed this independence movement to go forward and supported it where she can when she could. So, so far, so good with me. If she comes out with a statement like Poilievre did, I'll turn on her just like I'm turning on Poilievre now. And if I truly believe a lot of people need to put a lot of pressure on Poilievre, and maybe he'll be like a flag in the wind, and he'll blow the other way and come back to the independence movement.
Sean says, I won't badmouth the Conservative Party of Canada or most of the true conservatives, but I am going to have to go give Maxime Bernier an apology. He is right about the Uniparty and some conservatives, and he has been hammering on about this for the longest time.
Yeah, I really, really used to like Maxime Bernier, and then I just, I hadn't followed him for a while, but we made a video on him because he gave a statement on the Alberta independence movement, and he's firmly on the side of independence. He's the only national candidate, or any person that wasn't as a national candidate, on the side of Alberta independence firmly. I highly recommend to go watch that video. I don't know if it got throttled, but it didn't get a lot of views. Mm-hmm. I'm very happy with a lot of the statements he said. When I was researching that video to make, I was looking at a lot of the past statements he made since I kind of stopped paying attention to him. And man, he was saying things that were popular, that weren't popular way before they're popular, firmly against immigration, like firmly for Canadian values.
And he's the only one that is brave enough to do that. But I think that should also garner him a lot more popularity. And he is unfortunately hindered by the French and by the...
Yeah, I don't know if he could play a big role in the Alberta independence movement if it's a successful vote. He's a former banker and things like this. I wouldn't mind him running for the new leader of Alberta if it wins, and just seeing what happens. Maybe he goes against Danielle Smith and there's some other independent candidates there. But he's proven through his actions that he's worthy of support. Yeah.
And remote viewers.
Oh, and that's also why I said I'm not going to vote for Poilievre, but just even voting for PPC, because a lot of people don't vote for PPC because they're thinking they're throwing away their vote. And that's what I thought before. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, I'd rather just give a couple seats to the PPC and have the Conservative Party have to make a coalition with them in order to get things done.
Remote viewer says, I was ran out of my profession and marginalized for warning people not to take the jibby jab and refusing it myself. I was given a $7,000 fine. Yeah,
I was fired from jobs and had to work minimum wage jobs after that. I had to work 4 jobs instead of 2, which kind of sucked, but
we all survived.
Nobody gets to work 1 job in Canada anymore.
True, and that's also true. And I get that should be a red flag for anybody that's in Canada, having to work more than 1 job just to survive. Rottweiler says, how much money or what did Carney give to the new Conservative Party of Canada, trader that just crossed?
Yeah, he's making...
Well, he said he had quit before in November.
He's making backroom deals. He has plenty of access to money through Brookfield, and I'm sure a lot of these people are getting backroom deals, and I'm sure he has probably 2 or 3 more lined up. So,
And Sean says they are fake, but I don't know which they you are referring to.
probably Poilievre.
Maybe the conservatives. Remote viewer says I was run out. Oh, sorry, I read that one. Mr. Carter says people live in fear. It's ridiculous, and it's because it's a fear that has been instilled in them through actual actions.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous as well, but I'm somebody that has a backbone and has stood up for a long time. That being said, it's not like in other countries where people are fearful and there's not a real reason. The Canadian government has given example after example. They've canceled people's bank accounts, taken their homes away because they couldn't pay their mortgage once they canceled their bank account. They've profiled people at the border during the trucker protest. I mean, you name it. They've kind of done it over the last few years. The kind of censorship they're bringing into Canada or they're preparing to is ridiculous. So it is kind of, they are valid concerns. I do understand. And that's why I do say, if you're somebody that does have a backbone and feels like they're willing to take the risk and sign that petition, you need to do it, because for every one person that's willing to sign it, there's 4 or 5 that want to sign it, but are too scared. But if this thing goes to a vote, that vote is far more secret. You don't have to put your name and your side. So those 4 people that are scared will come out and vote.
Remote viewer says, I've boycotted Tim Hortons since the immigrant takeover. The food and coffee was instantly horrible. I did see a decline as well in Vancouver, but I feel like it was when it was bought by that Brazilian company that completely mismanaged it to the ground. It's funny because here in Mexico, we didn't used to have Tim Hortons when I was younger. When I used to live here, we only had Starbucks, and that was like very fancy or considered very fancy here in Mexico for the longest time. And now that we came back, Tim Hortons was already here. And there's like, I'm used to the Vancouver Tim Hortons where they all smell like pee. There's always dangerous people sitting around. The food and everything has flies and it's kind of gross. And here in Mexico, Tim Hortons are like at the level of a Starbucks, for example. They're all nice. They're all clean. They all look like these new coffee shops, very well maintained.
They're freaking nice. And it's all Canadian pictures, Canadian logos, flags all over the place.
Which in Canada, you could never do.
It's done really classy. Like Tim Hortons in foreign countries are far more nice than what they were in Vancouver, at least.
Yeah. And they're all newer because all the ones in Vancouver are falling apart as well.
Yeah.
6 says, independence is literally my last hope. And I think, unfortunately, it is for most people, but that is why there needs to be this push. There needs to be this energy and this rallying around doing it and getting it done.
And this is why Pierre is in real trouble, because the Alberta independence movement is the last hope for not only a lot of Albertans, but a lot of Canadians that don't live in Alberta that will probably move to Alberta if this vote goes the right way. But a lot of people have lost hope in the Conservative Party and Pierre Poilievre. He keeps compromising little value after little value after little value, where you try to ignore one thing and then I ignore another thing, then I ignore another thing. And then he comes out with a statement like he did the other day. And it's like, enough's enough now.
And again, I think it's going to be impossible to reverse course in Canada.
Yeah.
To something that is even tolerable, I would say.
There's a reason we left, and I lost hope. And it wasn't, I thought maybe a Conservative could win, but I lost hope in really the voters of Canada.
Yep.
I didn't think they would vote a Conservative in, and if they did, they wouldn't do it in a majority.
That's the thing, the sheeple, and just listening to people talk during the jibby jab era, the 2020, 2021 insanity, hearing people talk and say their true opinions about those that didn't want to take it or were maybe hesitant to take it, or about the truckers' convoy, that just reaffirmed, for me at least in Vancouver, the fact of where people stand and what they're willing to do to their fellow citizens.
Yeah, outside of Alberta, like we lived in Vancouver and we had fake vaccine passports so we can go into restaurants where everybody thinks everybody is vaccinated. And they were jibby jabs. And they were literally talking about how people that are unjibby jabbed deserve to die because they thought they were in a safe space and they could talk openly. And this was a common conversation they would have. And I would just be sitting there listening, absolutely disgusted.
Rottweiler says, I also boycotted Sing Hortons years ago, over a year ago. Yeah. And also says, yep, I'm looking at other countries as I type here. Well, Mexico's not that. I mean, Mexico City, if you want a city, is not that bad. Yes, there's some crime issues and etc. But as I've said, and this shocks a lot of people and they don't even believe me, even before I moved to Canada and then every time I would visit Mexico, I would feel a lot safer in Mexico City.
It depends on the city.
Depends on the city. Again, in Mexico City, which is more touristy, it's way bigger, it's way better-ish managed. than I ever did in Canada in the last few years. Because, I mean, if you know Vancouver, we used to live by Water Street, and it was just crazy people yelling 24/7, not being able. One time I wasn't able to park my car because there was somebody doing substances right in front of the garage. So I had to call the police. They took hours to get there. It was like 3 a.m. because I dropped you off at work because you used to work at night as well. And needles everywhere. It just became intolerable. And even if you think, I mean, right now around where we have our studio, here in Mexico, streets are pretty clean compared to Canada,
and I will say
which is something people don't imagine.
It is a very it is a far left-leaning government here, but you get freedom through chaos. They're barely keeping the country together, so they don't have really the opportunity to have the kind of authoritarianism Canada has. But you're also seeing, if you are looking to places to move, Central and South America all had a pink wave about a decade ago, and now they're all turning hard right. So
well, maybe explain what a pink wave means.
Pink wave was the feminist wave that it was all far left leaning socialist governments that took over almost every single country in
communist, I would say.
Yeah.
Started around in the 50s, 60s, really crystallized around the 70s, 80s, and then a lot of those governments just stayed in power for the longest time. Mexico is actually, unfortunately, one of the last bastions of this pink wave because we don't have really a conservative party here. The conservatism, as is understood in the rest of the world, or at least the rest of the Western world, does not exist here in Mexico. Even the parties that say that they're conservatives, they're only more traditional leaning, more religious, but they don't, for example, they don't espouse the merits of smaller governments. They don't espouse the benefits of keeping what works and getting rid of what doesn't.
Yeah, and I don't know, the U.S. is not very attractive because every 4 years it seems like they're switching and you don't know what you're going to really get. Trump's in office now. Yeah, and that's nice. I like what's happening, but I don't know what's going to happen in 2028. I want a country that has a little bit more stability as far as their leadership and their ideology. El Salvador I've never been there, but right now with their leadership, I like what he's doing with it. And
hopefully he doesn't trample over the democratic process like he's been trying to.
The immigration policy right now is very friendly to foreigners as well.
Yeah, that is true. But a lot of Salvadorians, and we do have a longtime viewer called Walker that has told us that because of this investment into foreign people moving towards El Salvador, it has become a lot more expensive for the locals there. So choices, decisions. 6 says, I haven't gone to Binder Horton Sing in years.
Well, we've gone maybe a month ago. I've gone a few times since we were here, and man, it's strange. There's a ton of Canadian stores here that are Vancouver based. Like there's Vancouver Pizza, there's Tim Hortons.
Well, they use the name. It's not that they're Vancouver based. They like the name Vancouver for some reason. I don't know why.
But I like going to little Canadian stores here or there. But we haven't gone in about a month.
Remote viewer says, sign the petition and vote yes on referendum. That is all we can do. And continuing to talk. And again, the power of people talking to each other is one of the strongest things. And don't let yourselves be censored.
Yeah, the power of, even if you don't have a channel, but trying to start a YouTube channel or an X feed so other people see it's okay to speak about this and you're not racist for speaking about this. And these are normal things that you want for your country. You want to kind of protect your culture of Alberta
and that it's regular citizens speaking up about what they've been going through and who haven't been allowed to do so for years now. They don't want to listen to their own citizens.
Yeah, I mean, they've given example.
That's why they're so scared.
They've given example after example, whether it's the trucker protest or the jibby jab era and the lockdowns or this independence movement and how they're trying to hamper the vote. If people don't go out and sign this petition and it doesn't go through and this thing falls apart, people are going to really be kicking themselves in the ass when Mark Carney gets a majority government.
And MJLIR says, I was fired from Sheraton Wall Center, Vancouver, because I refused to get the shot. I am now in Montreal and looking into Alberta. Run. No, don't listen to what I say. Don't take anything seriously. But I mean, I did hear horror stories because I had friends that worked at the Sheraton in Vancouver.
That on Burrard where we lived?
No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the wall center one, which is by the water.
Down by the water, yeah.
But
that's a nice hotel, though.
It is nice, but I have heard horror stories. I used to know one of the chefs there that also had to leave for similar reasons. But I mean, I am interested right now to know how Montreal and Quebec in general is taking the calls for separation there too, because the Separatist Party might get
Yeah, we cover,
Traction.
I'm going to cover all the independence movements on here, but the Alberta and Saskatchewan are kind of paired together. And I think the framework's being laid out in Alberta so Saskatchewan can have success. And there's a lot of similarities between the provinces. Quebec, on the other hand, I don't know if they can stand on their own 2 feet. I'll support that movement and let them have a vote and whatever they vote for. But they've been taking so many handouts from Alberta, from the federal government. I just don't know if they have the economy. They don't want to drill for their own oil and natural gas, which they have a ton of natural resources. They're just so eco-minded. They don't want to actually drill for it and use their own natural resources. They prefer to take it from Alberta. I don't know how they're going to stand on their own 2 feet with that kind of ideology.
And even, that's what I was going to say. Even ideologically, I don't know if they could even be paired together, both separatist movements, well, independence movements.
Yeah, I will say this. I very much, the reason I support the Quebec separatist movement a lot is because if Alberta separates and Quebec separates, Canada actually turns conservatives by the numbers and by the seats. So that's one way to create a super country of conservatism being Alberta and then turn Canada back to conservatism. If Quebec stops getting those remittance payments from Alberta, they're probably going to separate, and then the Liberals are going to lose all those seats.
And Sick says, I used AI to develop an exit strategy. Might want to look into that. I would say don't follow our exit strategy because it worked because of the time period from when we decided to when we were actually able to leave. But again, it was
took a long time.
4 years of saving up just to be able to survive and not have to worry about anything, but also saving up to be able to move all our crap away from Vancouver. It came by boat all the way to Mexico. It took like 4 or 5 months to get all our stuff here. And again, you were working 4 jobs. We had no weekends, working 12-hour. I had 2, sometimes 3 jobs, working 12-hour days.
But I will say
every
this.
day.
I kind of will say this. You had family here, so that really helped to have a support system. And I actually have a lot of friends that left Canada around the same time or shortly after that I worked with in different jobs. And some of them went to Greece, some of them went other places, but the people that were successful were the ones that had family connections in the places that they went.
Or some sort of connection.
Yeah.
Or at least people you might know, or people that might know how things work. Because I don't know if we went to a different country, Mexico's kind of hard to understand and comprehend all of the bureaucracy that you have to go through. I don't know if we would have made it anywhere else, basically. Rottweiler says, also vote for Pierre, keep Carney from getting a majority.
Yeah,
he might be able to, that's the thing. A lot of people now are talking that he might be able to get a majority even without having to call a snap election because of all the aisle crossers.
Yeah, and I'm fine with people that want to vote for Pierre Poilievre to stop Carney from getting a majority, but my personal decision would be just I'd vote for a real conservative party, and hopefully they get a few seats, and then they can make a coalition again with Poilievre.
Remote viewer says Sheinbaum is controlled. Oh yeah, like a puppet, both by Trump and by AMLO, who is her predecessor and the essentially owner of the party that she's from. And there are a lot of fissures and fractures showing up within Morena, but that's going to take a while to actually coalesce and then for something to happen. But she is fully controlled by everything that both the U.S. and AMLO and everybody else knows, and
organized crime.
Organized crime, any blackmail that could be had, they have it. So she's going to do whatever all sides tell her. And that's why she looks...
Trump has the most leverage on her, though, and that's why she cooperates behind the scenes but talks tough in front of the cameras.
Mm-hmm. Trent Briggs, hello,
good to see you again.
Wow, show on fire tonight. Yeah. The guy wanted to talk about Pierre, and I said, well, I don't know if it's a good idea. Most of our viewers for lives are from the U.S. And he was like, no, let's talk about it. It's important. So here we are.
I said it's the most important subject that's happening globally right now. We're going to talk about it. You made fun of my thumbnails, and nobody's going to tune in. I said, we'll wait and see.
Because the Jeff Rath picture, I'm very, what's it called? I'm a perfectionist. That's also why I never release videos, and it takes me a while to edit because I need everything to be perfect. But I said the Jeff Rath picture was a bit blurry. You said, it doesn't matter. I wanted to change it. And it didn't
matter. Well, it's been really hard because we've been profiling content creators that are supporting the Alberta independence movement. And it's funny because I make the thumbnails for it. And if I need pictures of politicians, they're easy to find. Yeah. You would think content creators would have a lot of pictures, but they don't. And the ones that they do have are too small. So when I try to blow them up for a thumbnail, they're no good.
Well, because they don't get profiled in articles and websites and etc. It's more if you're putting it up there or if you have a website, then it can link to that picture. I was going to say something else about that. Oh, yes. And we are also going to be starting probably this weekend, trying to get in contact with some of those creators to see if we can interview them, bring them on the show, talk to them, see how things are going, and then keep kind of updates also from the ground. Because, again, we're not on the ground, but we do look at and research a lot of this information. But it's different when you can get it from a first perspective point of view. Trent Briggs says USA needs Tim Hortons, but the nice ones, the ones that we have here in Mexico. Don't bring the pea-smelling ones from Vancouver to the US.
They have Dunkin' Donuts. They have a ton of competition in the States because donuts are like donuts and pizza and hamburgers are like, that is what American food is. I grew up in the States, half and half between Canada. I was born in Canada. After my mother died, I lived in the States for a long time before I went back to Canada. So I know American culture very well.
And I lived very briefly when I was young in the US, but like for 6 months. 6 says the vote has to be citizens with birth certificates. Yeah, and I agree with that.
It's going
to be way
They're going to try every trick in the book not to make this thing happen unless Mark Carney in the next stamp election only gets a minority. If he gets a minority, he's going to say, just let Alberta go. Then we'll recall the election and we'll get a majority then. Yeah. That has to be his plan. That would be my plan if I was in his shoes.
6 says they froze my accounts and I'll never forgive them.
Oh,
and
God. It's ridiculous. Don't forget it. I never forget anything.
No.
And that's why when this Alberta independence movement came up, I'm all over it. And I'm in 100% support of it. I understand a lot of people can't talk about it because they're scared of the repercussions on their channel or their job or anything else. Family. I can. I don't live in Canada anymore. Fuck them. They wanted to mess with me. Now I'm going to come mess with them.
Yep. Non says, none is back. So mission accomplished. Hope everything went well. And Sean says, USA has do Timmy's. They do have
Timmy's, yeah.
I think in Washington.
They're starting to spread out because they're becoming an international corporation.
Because of that Brazilian.
They're expanding a lot. They sold. It's no longer Canadian owners. A Brazilian company owns them.
Yep. And they started the decline. 6 says it's independence or you know what. Yes.
That's what I was thinking today because I was watching what do you do when you used all your legal recourses? Like before they feminized society, strong men stood up is what happened. Now that society's been feminized, the context was talking about Europe and how they're being legally invaded by migrants through their elites. Usually citizens would stand up at a certain point when all legal recourse was kind of done and they would stop it. But the society's been so feminized, men won't even stand up anymore.
Harmony Balance Health says that the sound seems muffled. Perhaps it's my computer. Everybody else let us know if it is muffled. I think most of our settings are like they always are, so they should be good. But sometimes YouTube likes to play tricks. And I've also been hearing, it hasn't happened here in Mexico, or no, I have noticed, but apparently YouTube X, a bunch of sites have been going down. He's checking. Maybe your mic is too close to your mouth.
My voice is sometimes weird as well. Yeah.
His voice gets really raspy too. But I have been hearing that a lot of websites have been going down in the US at least, and also in Canada. Here in Mexico, we haven't been affected, but maybe YouTube is also acting up because of that. I have to look a bit more into it and talk about it on Friday because a lot of people are having lots of crazy theories about why the internet and internet websites have been going down this past week.
Okay, I tried to fix my voice. I put it on neutral. We have a Rodecaster Pro that our voices modulates our voices. So
hopefully you didn't do mine because
no, yours is always on neutral.
Remote viewer says we have no actual vote or representation, and that's a thing. And then people do have to remember that when they're going out and I understand the fear, and I understand the fear of repercussions from voting or from signing or from actually supporting, but remembering what happens if you don't also.
They've already taken your vote from you. You don't. It's taxation without representation. This is the one time I understand they're trying to instill fear in the Albertan people, but this is the one time you actually have the opportunity to get your vote back and to have your voice heard. Because every other election, the election's decided by the eastern provinces in Canada long before it ever gets to Alberta.
It reaches Alberta. Remote says Pierre Poilievre is WEF, and a lot of politicians have. And that's also the thing with career politicians, which I talk about endlessly in Spanish. We have a channel in Spanish. I do a whole live show and then other videos in Spanish called Natin tu idioma. It's linked down below if you do speak Spanish. But that is what I continue to say here in Mexico too. And all over the world, it's the career politicians that all have these weird connections, all will bend just to get power and just to continue their search and their vie for power, and which is why we need more actual citizens, more people that are willing to be public servants, serve the public, and be the voices of the public up there instead of those that have just built careers with politics and in politics and gotten rich off of it too.
Yeah, I mean, the Canadian system's just rigged for Pierre Poilievre to be a national conservative and try to play within the rules when they're bending the rules constantly. I mean, they're just making backroom deals after backroom deals, even when they do lose elections in order to get a majority government. I mean, he's in a hard place. This would be the opportunity for him to stick the middle finger up at the national government and say, let's go with independence if you're going to rig this thing again.
And Polly or Latino San, thank you so much for the $2 super chat.
Thank you.
I think it's $1. Yeah, regular dollar says, someone say donuts. Proud of you guys. Keep talking. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can get super chats now.
Yeah. We can get super chats.
Thank you from everybody that did subscribe and got us to the point where we're at. It was hard to grow the channel. All the topics we talked about were censored. The channels was obviously getting censored. We had built a secondary channel, one that was in Spanish, and that has 11,000 subscribers. So I know regular growth and I know when something's getting throttled. So far, the Alberta independence movement has been that subject that kind of pushed us over the edge, but I think it's only a matter of time before the federal government really comes in and starts censoring that hard.
But it's also what started both of our channels. Our Spanish channel used to be our just regular Nat and the Guy channel. And again, you can go watch the first videos we did 4 years ago. It was or almost 5 years ago. It was on the Truckers Convoy. And it is something that we have been passionate about. And again, that connection to the Alberta independence movement. And it's the same insane Canada issues over and over again that I think also make us more passionate about talking specifically about that. We do cover more geopolitics and stuff.
Yeah, there was this gentleman that did a march across Canada. What was his name again?
I forgot again.
We walked the first leg of the journey with him, and then we caught up and did a report. And that was one of our first videos as well. But I had never looked what happened to him after. And of course, he refused to get the jibby jab. That was what the protest was about. Mm-hmm. And they ended up giving him massive fines and try to prosecute him in military court after. And it was James Top, yeah. When he did get to Ottawa, though, there was a huge reception for it. It warmed my heart. And I was glad that went well. It's just a shame the Canadian government can't even... They even admitted they were wrong, but continue to prosecute them.
And also, thank you so much, Polly, for all your support. Go also follow at Latinos Land as Polly the Latinos Land, because he also comes to my Spanish show now. So thank you so much for all the support and encouragement too. We still have a lot of comments, so I'm going to try to hammer through them.
And this is what I was talking about. I was saying, because we do our live show Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I said I might expand it to Tuesdays and Thursdays. Let's try a few shows with the Alberta independence movement and see how the viewership goes.
Because we used to have a more of a culture-centric and entertainment-centric show on Tuesdays and Thursdays that was just you talking.
Yeah, so I might expand out an Alberta independence show on its own on either Tuesdays
for like updates
or Thursdays,
or interviews, maybe live interviews. Non says Doug Ford, LOL.
Oh my!
He's an embarrassment.
God, he's the worst, and it's not even enough to say.
We thought his brother, and again, rest in peace, but we thought his brother was embarrassing, and now he's trying to one up him apparently.
Oh.
Remote viewer says, "I do not remote view." I don't even fully know what that means. So. Non says, congrats on the subscriber count. Thank you so much. Says, I just watched a couple ads. Nice work. And yes, thank you so much to everybody that did get us over that monetization hurdle, because we did want to do this when we moved from Canada and I moved back home to Mexico. It was kind of our goal to be able to do this and then expand it and make go out, make documentaries eventually, but all just financed by essentially YouTube and not having to bend to any kind of sponsorship, any kind of person that pays you, because that is what I have found with both conservative but also just content in general. It becomes people lose their voices once they start kind of bending over backwards for money.
Well, yeah, and I used to work
that's why we saved up a lot.
I used to work in underground mining, oil, construction, all like really physical jobs. I used to teach jujitsu, but my back went out and I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? And as we were planning to leave the country, I was like, I need to find a new career. So I said, well, let's try YouTube. The Spanish channel went well, but you don't get paid anything for Spanish channels. You get like literally cents. And it's just like, I don't know if we're going to survive. I'm glad we got monetized now. And it's really from the bottom of our heart. It allows us to continue to do this work. We've constantly picked subjects that aren't going to necessarily help the growth of the channel because we do get throttled a lot, I think.
But also, I think we do serve an interesting and important purpose. Number one, because we have both lived in Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. You more in the U.S. than me. But also because when and if, and possibly, yes, it's just when Canada starts censoring, the federal government starts censoring content creators within Canada, we always want to have this space open for them so the government doesn't, because they can't overreach all the way here in Mexico. They're overreaching here in Mexico in a different way against people that speak up against the Mexican government, which I do. But at least we have kind of those both sides covered.
Yeah.
Hold on. Escaped from Canada. Oh, good. Or China. Bernier has no people skills. He has no character. And again, I do think the accent and the Montreal thing kind of hinders him a bit.
Yeah, it comes off a lot. He does. I do like what he has to say, and I do like his first principles. And he, like Poilievre, for instance, when we were doing that march with James Top, I expected Pierre, that was an issue Poilievre would come out real quick with, and he didn't until nearly the end of the march when he knew the polling was on the side of the people. He's almost a lot like Trudeau with that. Trudeau used to pay thousands of dollars a day to know where the polling was going and how to shift his messaging and what side to take. Poilievre really waits for the polling before he'll take a stance. He doesn't come out before it. I really appreciate Maxime Bernier. Whether it's popular or not, this is what I believe. This is what I stand for. And he knows his first principles. I understand, yeah, he has a broken accent. And when he talks in videos, it comes off kind of contrived
and awkward.
But I really like the fact that I think he doesn't care if it's popular or not. Those are his stances.
And he does come off a bit too strong or forceful sometimes, which could put people off. I think that's maybe where the no people skills comes from, but certain people.
But also because
sometimes that's necessary though.
But also because he gets no votes and his party gets no votes, it makes Poilievre think, oh, I have to go more left. Nobody's going to steal my votes on the right. So let me just become a liberal slowly over time. Let me transition.
Oh, quickly now. Six says, I voted for the PPC back when Maxime first created the party. And I do remember, and we've been following, don't know him personally, would love to, but we've been following Viva Frei as well. And again, I remember way back when he tried to...
He ran with the PPC. Yeah.
Neil Roberts says, Alberta independence or bust. And that's literally what's going to happen. I mean, it's just me now. That's literally what's going to happen, unfortunately. And it is, as Guy always says, and I always say, it's the last opportunity, I think, that the people in Canada that do want to change and do see no hope for them to do something, to act up, and especially for Alberta to separate from the federal government that serves no positive purpose for them and just steals.
I had to blow my nose up, so I went to you.
Yes. Escape from China says, where in Mexico are you? We have been north of Puerto Vallarta for the past several years. Scared to go back to Canada, but I want to help the independence movement moving back to Alberta.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, we never lived in Alberta, so we couldn't kind of go back and then help vote because that
I do want to do stuff on the ground, and I'm thinking about I want to report on the ground, especially as it gets closer. So, yeah.
So we might go. But just to report because we wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge thing to uproot our life and move to Mexico. The government really pushed us to our limits, and now we're firmly kind of sit here, and yeah.
And we're in Mexico. We are close to Mexico City. We're very close to Mexico City, but I am from Mexico City. That's where I lived my entire life. So we just came back to what was familiar. But I wouldn't recommend living like downtown or really close to the city because it gets crazy. Traffic, etc. Pollution. Non says, ads are coming on during your stream. Weird. I guess it's because we're monetized and I never know how to tell it when to or when to not. I put it on like low ads, so not that many appear. We have to tinker with it, but sorry if it's bothering you.
But this is the first time we've had enough people watching at once, I think,
to have ads.
For YouTube to want to put ads.
Yeah. And Rafa says hello, and Rafa has been one of our most fervent supporters.
He's been our most loyal supporter from day one. When nobody was watching the stream, he would watch streams, make comments. It really helped us to keep going.
In Spanish and English. So thank you so much, Rafa, again. Escape from Canada says, we were in BC for many years, sold our house there and left Canada for a few years. Well, if you were able to sell your house, you've...
Good choice, because private property rights in BC are disappearing.
Yep, on purpose. MJLIR says, I used to live in the 200 block of East Georgia. East Georgia would be, because I know West Georgia. That's kind of close
We lived on Burrard and Smythe when we lived in Vancouver.
Yeah, on that,
above
we can say
above
where,
the Scotiabank Theater.
It was a nice apartment, but I mean, you had it for a long time. So after when we moved, we saw the actual rent prices that were insane. Rafa says, any chance of you analyzing Jeff's emails? Epstein.
Oh, Epstein's emails.
I'm kind of waiting for more shoes to drop and for more things to be solidified, because a lot of things are, I mean, it's millions and millions of pages. Yes, we could do a stream, like a 10-hour stream trying to go through them, but...
Yeah. Well,
and you don't love to talk about the subject.
It's not my favorite subject, and it's hard because there's just so much information.
And that's the thing. It gets like information overload, and then you, with AI and with everything else that they've been also manipulating, be it for fun or to try to prove points, it's better to wait till more things have been discerned and combed through and then speak about the things that are verifiable.
Yeah.
Because I have seen a lot of things like people backtracking and saying, oh no, this wasn't true. Oh no, this was AI, etc., etc. Escape from Canada says, I retired from Vancouver Hospital early, so I left before they mandated the jab. Good. Mandated the jab. I knew it was coming, and good. Smart.
Yeah, it was absolutely freaking crazy because we lived above the Scotiabank Theater, so the hospital was directly across the street from us. And every freaking night, everybody's banging pots and pans and in solidarity with the nurses and doctors. And then all of a sudden, a month later, if you're a nurse and doctor and you don't have a jab, you're fired.
And they wanted them to be fired too.
Yeah,
which is insane.
It was absolutely disgusting, like how the Canadian government just flips on a dime.
And the people themselves too. That's the thing. The people themselves flip on a dime whenever they're given instructions by the federal government. Escaped also says, I shortened names eventually, but you'll know it's you. Says, we got into Mexico under the regularization program. That was fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
And Non says, bring us the poutine. I never really understood poutine until I left Canada. Now I do like it.
Okay, let's get into...
Hold on, we do have just a few more, or should I just leave them?
Okay, yeah,
I don't want to leave them.
Okay.
Escape says, it's very clear, but I'm in Mexico too. Good. Latino says, the Latino sound says, yes, YouTube has been acting up. Thank you.
And X was acting up. That's why we were late today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Non says, YouTube main page was down yesterday. Yeah. And Escape says, don't be afraid, but having your phone in a Faraday bag would be a good thing. Especially in Canada. Non says, lots of problems for live streams. Oh, hopefully not for this one.
Yeah.
Also says, might be the satanic PDF files. Maybe, because they said they released stuff on YouTube and that's why it was taken down. This is all just conjecture and rumors, but there's that.
Okay, let's get into personality politics if we can.
And then I leave the rest for later?
Yeah, whenever you want.
Okay. I don't think we'll do the whole show today.
No, I know that, but yeah.
Hold on. Okay, so now we're going to personality politics. There's some stuff that you specifically...
And then after personality politics, we'll read comments again.
The rest of your comments.
And then we'll go into health and MAHA. We won't get to the whole show. We usually do every single region, U.S., Asia, Canada, the EU.
And Ethel, I will read your comments in a little bit on RU and BLE.
Just because we had so many comments.
Yes, thank you so much as well.
We appreciate it though.
Yes. So let's go to personality politics and we'll read all your comments.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And the first subject of personality politics, I think, is going to be all guy, because I don't know anything about this. From Netflix, quote, 2 MMA legends are coming to Netflix. Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano, Saturday, May 16th, live only on Netflix.
Yeah, this was a big, this is a big event because this is Netflix getting into MMA. Also, these are huge. These are probably the biggest 2 female athletes in combat sports. They've both been retired for a long time. I think Ronda Rousey's been out for about 10 years. Gina Carano for almost 20 years. Ronda Rousey's 39. Gina Carano's 44. Gina Carano's a little bit bigger than her, but I think that if this goes more than 1 round, Gina Carano has the advantage. Less than 1 round, Ronda Rousey. One other thing about this fight, Ronda Rousey has had 2 kids. Gina Carano has none. So that does take a wear and tear on your body. Although I think Ronda Rousey has stayed in better shape in the off time than Gina Carano.
And Gina Carano also became kind of a symbol for censorship during the Jibby Jab era as well in the U.S. Had her fight with Disney, essentially won her fight with Disney because they did end up paying a settlement. So a lot of people, I think, will be attracted to the fight because of that and to see her go back into the ring.
Yeah, it was funny.
Is it called a ring or an octagon?
It's actually a hexagon on this one, I think.
Go back into the hexagon.
Usually it's an octagon because it's the UFC, but UFC didn't want to sign this fight. It was interesting because Dana White called Gina Carano the B word a few years ago, and she broke off all talks, and that's why this didn't happen in the UFC. Originally, that's why where they tried to make it happen. Jake Paul is actually the one putting on this event. He's not going to be fighting in it, but his company's the one kind of promoting it.
And
we'll
Happy
see
Punch
Ronda Rousey
says,
talk here.
Quote, Ronda Rousey tried to make a UFC comeback before signing with Jake Paul.
I always said that Gina is the one person I'd come back to fight for. The more that I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I need this. I really need this fight. And I reached out to Dana and asked him if he would be interested in it. And it didn't exactly work out with the UFC, but it led us to here today. I was 9 months pregnant, and I saw a video of Gina Carano giving an interview, and she didn't look good. She gained like an unhealthy amount of weight, and my first thought was like, oh my God, what can I do to help? When I was in a similar spot, when I was, depressed and gave up in the world and inadvertently gave up on myself, what I needed was a goal and something to reignite my passion again. This has been in the making since I was pregnant, which is over a year ago. I told her, if I have to go out there and train you myself to fight me, I will. And we made it happen. We had to work together to overcome every obstacle to get here. It's been like a secret for so long. I can't believe I'm actually able to talk about it. I always said that.
Yeah, and usually I don't like Ronda Rousey a lot. She said a lot of things in the past and done a lot of things. And after she had a loss, she didn't take it very well. That being said, she was very likable in that particular clip and that particular interview. And I am glad to see this fight happen. I'll watch it. It's free on Netflix. I'm glad MMA is finally free. I used to work at a bar, and the bar eventually I worked at a bar that didn't play it on the weekends, and I hated it because I would just have to read what happened on my phone. I used to teach jiu-jitsu, so it's the only sport I watch is MMA.
And it's the only sport I'm forced to watch because he watches it a lot. I still don't understand most of it, and I just think they look like weird people hugging each other.
You can skip the next story, but go to the CNN one.
Okay. Hold on. Disgusting. CNN from Jack Posobiec, quote, CNN just ran a hit piece on the Charlie Kirk Memorial, labeling it a Christian nationalist event.
Yeah, and I brought this story up because this is becoming a major talking point. They're trying to demonize Christianity and Christian nationalism in the mainstream media. I gather stories every single day. All I am is plugged into the news. It can get draining at times, but I notice threads when they start coming up, and when multiple mainstream outlets kind of start repeating the same talking points and really demonizing Christian nationalism as this is the far right movement that we need to stop.
And they're also doing, I believe it is CNN as well, doing a whole documentary about the subject. So.
Yeah, and I will say, I'm not Christian myself, but I am very sympathetic to Christian nationalism, and I think society needs a non-moving moral foundation.
Aside from the government?
Yes, and I think Christianity provides that. I really do. I don't like what's happened over the last few years with neoliberalism, where the government basically gives you your moral values, and when they say it's time to switch and our morals are changing, everybody's expected to switch and change. So I want to see a non-moving moral foundation.
Well, for the past several months, I've been working on a special project examining the growing influence of Christian nationalism in America. If you're not familiar, Christian nationalism is an ideology rooted in the belief that our country was founded as a Christian nation and that our laws and institutions should reflect Christian values. In the lead up to my hour-long documentary this weekend, we're going to bring you a preview of what you'll see, starting off with the assassination of Charlie Kirk last year. Experts say it was a pivotal moment for the movement and an occasion where the tragedy of his loss unified Christian nationalists and the Trump administration as they
We'll pause it for a second. And she says it with this condescending voice, like, people say the country was founded on Christianity. Yeah, it was founded on those values. 100%.
September 21st, 2025.
America is a nation in grief, a nation in shock, and a nation in mourning.
And you can fast forward just to the end because it's quite a long piece. The newscaster comes back on.
And I mean, this just shows that they're scared.
Here we go.
They're scared and they understand the power of people finding faith again.
Yeah,
This
and
is why they're doing all this.
it's not just in the United States. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in Alberta specifically, and that's why Canada absolutely hates Alberta. There's a war on Christianity.
Examples of the shift in our culture that we're experiencing right now, where a large segment of American Christians are being activated by these ideas, radicalized by these ideas that say that they are the persecuted ones and that they need to stand up for Christians' rights.
And maybe that's what happened with wokeism, but they're trying to, it's confession through projection, where these woke values that they tried to feed society really didn't work out for them. And now they're trying to demonize Christianity. But when they demonize it, I just always think about wokeism and how they try to push that.
But also, and we talk about this a lot, there is a shift in the U.S., I would say, and we see it in Canada. We saw it in Canada years ago, a shift towards the liberals and the wokes and all of this ideological stuff, putting on the mask of Christianity in certain churches, not all of them, and certain denominations as well, who are full on just woke churches, essentially. And it is a way for them to hide behind and continue that ideology without being as called out as they have been. I mean, today is Ash Wednesday, and I didn't bring up the clip or the tweet, but I saw that there's certain churches that are now doing glitter ashes for people that want to, portray how they have been persecuted by the Christians themselves. However, the whole point about Ash Wednesday is to repent and to realize that you will go back to being ashes.
Well, it's a fantastic
So glitter
point.
ashes is a complete opposite tenet of that.
These Protestant churches, especially in Canada, before we left Vancouver, were just covered in these LGBTQ rainbow flags. They're pushing politics into the churches, and they're pushing woke values into churches. The left is literally trying to put on a skin suit, and Mark Carney is trying to help this along by is taking away tax exempt status for any church that is against abortion, and that should be a tenet of all churches.
Moving on. From open source intel, quote, Miranda Devine asked JD Vance about potential friction with Marco Rubio over the 2028 ticket. And Vance said, there's not going to be any tension. Marco is my friend in the my best friend in the administration. I would prefer to see them run together with JD as the presidential candidate, but we'll see.
The president doesn't mention who will be running for president and who vice president. Now, everyone assumes it would be you, but Marco Rubio is 13 years older. He's run for president before. Would there be any tension there?
First of all, no, there's not going to be any tension. Marco is my best friend in the administration, and he and I work a lot together.
Right.
And we really do, I think, a lot of the good work that we've been able to do as an administration is because we're all able to work together. And again, this is why I say worrying too much about the politics actually, I think, makes you worse at the job that you have. I never want to wake up. And so far, I've never woken up and thought to myself, how do I make myself president of the United States? What I wake up and think to myself is, how do I do a good job as vice president? And I think Marco Rubio asks himself, how do I do a good job as secretary of state? And that should be the question that each of us keeps on asking ourselves.
The president doesn't mention.
Yeah, and it's going to be critically important who wins that 2028 election. It looks like it's going to be Newsom on the Democratic side, most likely. I really don't like Marco Rubio because he comes from the neocon camp, and I believe he will push war if he gets in there. That being said, JD Vance needs somebody to kind of make a big tent movement and broaden out his voter base. Marco Rubio provides that, and I guess ultimately I am willing to compromise, I guess. And I really hate to say that because I do not like Rubio because of his past record. He's recently rebranded himself and repackaged himself.
Well, they both did.
When he came into MAGA, not both of a little bit,
JD.
yeah. But he's not a real authentic populist as JD, I think, is. That being said, you cannot let Newsom win that election under any circumstances.
Speaking of, and because, from Anthony Brian Logan, quote, Gavin Newsom accuses Joe Rogan of having California derangement syndrome due to his consistent criticism of the state. Maybe it's because California is deranged, and he's just pointing out the truth. I would say I have Vancouver derangement syndrome because it made me deranged living there.
I think there's a California derangement syndrome, and he's part of it. I mean, I think people are obsessed with focusing on what's wrong with the state and not what's right with the state. I mean, you have more scientists, engineers, more researchers, more Nobel laureates in the state than any other state in the nation. We're the fourth largest.
They're all leaving your state.
economy in the world, $4.1 trillion. We're the finest system of higher education that addresses the issue of equity better than any other public education system in the world. We dominate in every category, name it. We're the biggest manufacturing state, biggest farming state, ranchers and hunting jobs, which is interesting. We dominate in AI and quantum and fusion in every key category. The quality of life here consistently, and you look at the top 10 cities in the United States of America consistently, the top 5 are identified in the state of California, and we invent the future. It happens here first. We're America's coming attraction. What I think doesn't attract people that tend to be on the spectrum of his politics is our diversity. We're the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy. We're a majority minority state. 27% of the state is foreign born, and that offends a lot of people.
Yeah, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with because, he's just a snake in the grass. He knows how to sell something and lie. He's been putting on these podcasts, the Newsom podcast. I watch it because he invites conservatives on there to kind of debate them. And when they catch him on something, he goes back and he makes sure he changes the statistics and does something and invests money in these holes so he can bring it up the next time somebody tries to attack him on that. He knows how to sit down for 2 or 3 hours, like with the Joe Rogan, and actually have an interview. Not that he's been on Joe Rogan, but because he does that podcast format, he's the only Democrat that can probably talk long format. I used to live in California, so I absolutely hate Gavin Newsom. I do not want to see him win. Yeah.
But even with what he was saying there, all those jobs he mentioned, all that innovation he mentioned is now leaving the state because you've made it so difficult to live there and to have a business there and to actually do anything worthy of actually generating the money that you need to continue spending the way he spends.
Yeah, California still has the 3rd largest or one of the largest economies in the world just as a state. And he is collapsing that thing every single day, and the level of corruption in there. But because their economy is so big, they still lead in a lot of things. And the way he wants to read statistics, he knows how to make it sound good, especially in a soundbite, which is a shame. They're going to have to clip him, meaning he's going to probably do well in a debate, but you're going to have to kind of ask him a question. He's given an opposite answer in the past, and then you can put that on X. That's the way to beat him, I think.
Now I'll finish reading your comment if you allow me to. Can I finish reading?
Yeah.
Remote viewer says, I had trouble with BitChute yesterday. We used to be on BitChute.
Well, yeah, that was the end of the personality politics.
Yes.
We're going to go into the health and MAHA section and education next.
Yes.
We'll do comments now, though.
Escape from Canada says, we have to leave Mexico because we can't afford it. We need an income. My little pension is not enough, even though we own our condo. And certain parts, especially the more touristy parts, I would say close to Puerto Vallarta, I think you mentioned, is going to be a lot more expensive, especially in those enclaves where there's just expats. It becomes that the prices do go up. But in Mexico City, if you get away from the more touristy areas and more towards the residential areas or a little bit further away from Mexico City, kind of where we are, I think it's a bit better. But comparatively to Canada, it's certain things are almost the same or very similar price-wise, but some other things like food, there's no comparison.
Yeah, and before we left, we were trying to think like what kind of job can we do remotely and stuff like that, and trying to make a transition. It's very hard just moving in general, especially if you don't work remotely. It's almost impossible.
And remote viewer, speaking of, says, all politicians avoid the hard subjects, including Bernier. But I think he avoids it way less than everybody else. At least he's pointing out the things that are most of the things that are actually wrong.
It's a shame Maxime Bernier didn't win more seats last time because he won't be on the national stage for the debates. And having his perspective in those debates would have been absolutely phenomenal.
And remote viewer says, ads are based on subscription numbers. Oh, I didn't know that. So maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah.
I'll try to see if I can kind of calm them down if there's too many, but we've never had that issue before. Rafa says, love you guys. Love you too as well. And thank you so much. Always. Remote viewer says, red shoes to drop. Because of the shoe to drop. Okay. You didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
Remote
It
viewer
went over
says,
my head.
they turned doctors and nurses into unalivers. Yeah, the MAID program. It's right there.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse, and they've monetized that thing, and now other countries are trying to imitate it. The U.S. is adopting a lot of those policies. We try to blow the whistle on that as much as we can. We do have an American audience as well as a Canadian audience. And man, if a lot of Americans just don't know, all they have to do is look up to the north. As long as they continue with liberal policies in the United States, they're going to become Canada in 10 or 20 years.
Less, 5.
Yeah.
Remote viewer says, get rid of your cell phone. You almost don't use yours.
I don't use my cell phone
And I
since
use
we
mine to
used New Mexico.
communicate.
I have it here because I use it for the show to do switching and stuff for the show, but I don't use it like how I used to use it in Canada.
Yeah. Nan says, I've had enough of these people. I can't sing, but I started reading it normal, and then I realized it was, we used that Alex Jones parody song. I
That's
always
my
forget the
favorite
name.
song. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, go on YouTube, type Alex Jones song.
I should put the name of the actual person that made it, but I'll put it down below in a bit. Remote viewer says they're both sellouts. It doesn't matter who you're talking about. Yeah, probably. Also says, I love Holly Holm. Oh, Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. Says, I love Holly Holm and loved when she destroyed Rousey.
She recently, she recently went in a wrestling event. They're having these wrestling events where they're taking non-wrestlers that have some experience that can bring eyeballs in, and she recently wrestled in that. So she's kind of expanding out. Yeah, she was great, especially when she knocked out Rousey, and it really exposed Rousey's who she really was. She did not take the loss well whatsoever. And then later on, when Holly Holm did lose, man, she showed how you should take a loss.
Sure. Remote viewer says, I never give CNN any airtime. I don't think anybody does. Their numbers are
They
in
do.
the toilet.
We do because we clip them. The only people that watch them is the shows that clip them.
To clip them, yeah. Remote says, JD Vance and Peter Thiel are besties, and that's why I said, it's not that.
There's nobody,
recent that
there's nobody really good to vote for. There's so many questions about JD Vance. He just came up out of nowhere. He's highly connected to Peter Thiel. There's all kinds of question marks around him. Marco Rubio's a firm neocon. He comes from the war wing of the neocon party that's currently trying to rebrand. He's completely tried to rebrand himself, but he still has all the same connections.
It's going to take a while.
You can just look at his voting record. But what's the other option? Gavin Newsom? Honestly, I'm not expecting some kind of revolution. I just don't want it to go the way it was going under Biden.
Mm-hmm. Remote says Joe Rogan is getting the hell out of California. He is moving too. He moved a while ago.
Yeah, he already lives in Texas now.
But again, he speaks negatively about it because of what he went through and what he saw on the ground from living there for years and years on end. That's why I also criticize Vancouver so much. Remote says Gavin Newsom. He's a sociopath for sure. He's weird. And also has a comment about Remote says Holly Holm is very generous and is a follower of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She's absolutely fantastic. And I will say somebody that's woke, but I've heard some really good stories about is Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. I don't like a lot of the public's political statements she said, but she's gone into diners where they didn't have any equipment, they had minimal equipment. She's completely remodeled the diner for them as a gift. And I've just heard really good stories about that girl. So
I don't into sports at all. So should I read all the RUMBLE comments now or after?
Wait till we go over there. We'll go over there around 8:45.
Yeah.
And then we'll read all the comments from RUMBLE when we go over there around 8:45.
That's his decision. Blame him, Ethel, not me today.
Let's go into Health and MAHA, and then
And then
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
And yes, health is important to talk about, especially because of everything that has also been implemented and done through the disaster of the world we live in right now. But firstly, let's
I wanted to start with the last story first. It was the Canadian story.
Okay, hold on.
I meant to put that one first, actually.
Now I gotta find
It's the fourth one.
Okay. Because this also relates kind of to our experience into Mexico in a way as well. From Ryan Gertison says, quote, Canada is the only country in the world, but we'd have to fact check it, but where private healthcare is illegal. We have the only system in the world that operates as a state monopoly and forces innocent patients to suffer and die in wait
Yeah, and there's so many problems with the healthcare system. I mean, so many problems, but it would take a lot of relief off the system if they had some kind of privatized care.
As a Mexican in Canada, I did not understand and did not see why there wasn't a way to go get private healthcare if you were able to just relieve the stress to the medical system itself.
So you, correct me if I'm wrong, believe that the introduction of some private healthcare in Canada could take the strain off of the public healthcare system. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So Canada is the only country in the world where private health insurance is illegal. And the that alone sends a message. We're talking, when we compare our system to countries that offer universal healthcare, developed countries, we come in last in access, last in equity. We are coming last in looking after low-income groups, and yet we're at the top when it comes to costs. And I use the sports analogy. If you were the manager or coach of a hockey team and you were at the bottom of the league, but spending more than those at the top of the league, wouldn't you look at what those teams are doing and try and learn from their methods? And Canada hasn't done that. We have the only system in the world that operates as a state monopoly and forces innocent patients to suffer and die on wait lists.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the big places where there's a ton of corruption in Canada, and it's in the medical system. The majority of tax funds goes to this healthcare system that I think is completely broken. Mark Carney is now trying to make a huge military investment. I think he's going to try to put a lot of corruption there as well, rather than manufacturing their own military equipment or build their own military industrial complex. Money's just going to start disappearing all over the place.
But it is insane when you're citizens that can and both can't afford to have to travel to get actually seen by a doctor and not die off in a wait list somewhere waiting for treatment. It's insane that Canadians still think that their healthcare system is so great. Again, coming from Mexico, we have both a private and public sector. Yes, the public sector sucks in a lot of places. There's rats in some hospitals, often remote little towns. Yes, that's disgusting and horrible. But at least there's the option to go elsewhere or find treatment in 3 different streams of medical care that Mexico allows for.
Well, I was in Canada for like 8 years. I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my back.
Yep.
Couldn't figure it out. I resigned to the fact that I was never going to be able to work out again. I was going to have to change my job, change my life. I got extremely depressed, but nobody could figure it out.
And you were in pain all the time.
I come to Mexico within 2 days of seeing a doctor. I went to one doctor. He gave me to a specialist. Within a week, they knew exactly what was wrong with me. Gave me medication. Felt not 100% better, but I can start working out again now, finally. Like, it was unbelievable night and day difference.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's not that other health systems are perfect or that they work. I mean, the U.S. one is also very broken, I would say. But just the fact that Canada, it's one of the things that they're proud of when it doesn't work. And so many people are either choosing to off themselves, which shouldn't be happening, or are not able to get the treatment they need or end up with crippling permanent issues because they weren't able to get to a doctor in time.
Well, we also showed that story on I think it was either the last episode or the one before, about Canada actually had planned, and with the academics, they made this plan to make sure people couldn't get family doctors because it would cut down the price of healthcare. And that's exactly what's happened. It's almost impossible to have a family doctor, and you really need a family doctor to get assigned to a specialist.
In 13 years I lived there, I only ever was able to go to either walk-in clinics or just directly to the ER, emergency room, get triaged, wait for who knows how long if I had a sprain, or if one time I sliced my finger because I tried to shut an umbrella and it ended up shutting on my finger, and I had to wait for hours there, but there was no other place to go, nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And to me, that was insane from someone that's not used to that. Maybe it's because Canadians are used to that, but it shouldn't be that way.
As far as immigrants coming into Canada, there should be some kind of medical insurance they have to buy. They shouldn't be put right into the system because it's a drain on the system. Mm-hmm. So you only have a certain number of taxpayers, but you have millions of immigrants coming into the country. The system's just going to break down, and that's what's currently happening.
Something else that around the globe, I will say, is an issue is forever chemicals. And I've heard different things about the person that's going to speak Cali means, but on this subject, they're pretty good when they talk.
Well, and the United States is really starting to kind of wake up to this under Robert F. Kennedy. So good on RFK. He has been doing a great job.
With just some of the foods where, you're likeliest, most liable to find these toxic forever chemicals that are in ultra-processed foods. The most insidious thing, though, as far as I can see about these ultra-processed foods, is that the chemicals are literally everywhere. They're not just, in the vending machine food supply. They're not, they are in everything from rotisserie chickens at the grocery store in some cases to bakery items that you buy thinking they're fresh from the bakery section. It's hard to really list how widespread the use is.
This is not the American people's fault. The American people have been duped and let down by our public health authorities, industry, across the board. And this administration, and it was incredible in 60 Minutes last night, you had a leading Democrat, the former Democrat, Clinton administration, FDA Commissioner, David Kessler. You have leading medical organizations, people that disagree with the administration, quite frankly, on a lot of things. They are saying this is the most important public health issue facing America today, the ultra-processed food. And they're working with the administration. We are working with them, and we are encouraging their help.
Yeah, and I mean, the way a lot of these health authorities are working, and it just makes me think of Canada again when it comes to fake meat. Like, they no longer have to label fake meat. They can try to sell it as real meat, and the people will never know the difference. And they very often, a lot of these dangerous chemicals that are being put in these foods in America as well, it's just, they invent words so people don't know what's actually in it.
But also the lobbying groups and everything that is allowed to transpire with both the public sector and what they allow, the FDA, etc., but also what the industry itself has allowed itself to become. And I will say, I think a lot of the feminization and maybe a lot of the issues just in general we see across societies, not just in the West, but specifically in the West, in certain cases, is because of the forever chemicals and the effects that they have in hormone balance levels, on hormones in general, on what it does to the body, on how it makes the chemicals within your brain react. All of that, I think, is also to blame for what we're seeing, but we don't even consider it that much.
Yeah, we're really good. Again, on RFK recently changed the food pyramid. And then I was like, I knew he changed the food pyramid. We talked about it, but I didn't really look at it in depth. I looked at it. Absolutely fantastic that he changed that. Now, if they can just get the American people to start eating like that.
Food.
Yeah, because it seems like breads is
one of the bigger issues.
Yeah, one of the bigger issues, and the types of breads.
I don't know if I can say the word of the chemical that a lot of these, that corn and wheat is treated, I wouldn't say in Spanish, the corn and wheat is treated with, but that is one of the main things that is making, especially people in America, because it's banned in the EU and it's banned in Canada, it's not fully banned here in Mexico. That is one of the things that makes people think they have celiac or react negatively to breads. Okay, because bread it's supposed to be a staple of our diets, especially in the West. From Red Wave Press, quote, White House senior advisor Callie Means, the FDA does not have a list of chemicals in our food. When you look at food ingredients, FDA cannot tell you.
60 Minutes. The FDA today does not have a list of chemicals in our food. When you look at food ingredients, the FDA cannot vouch today for the safety of all this plethora of chemicals. And these chemicals are added, and it's said by CEOs of food companies on earnings calls, these chemicals are added to make food addictive. Yeah. They say that and brag about that on earnings calls. It makes the food softer, it makes the food tastier, it gets kids addicted. That is the stated strategy of food companies, and the FDA has been asleep at the switch until now. But that's what 60 Minutes. The
yeah,
FDA
and then you pair that with these food industry lobbyists, and I mean, the whole system's kind of rigged against the American people there. People do have a responsibility, though. I mean, I eat healthy now, but I eat healthy now because I have back issues. If I eat unhealthy, I get major swelling and stuff between my discs.
But I will also say, I forgot what I was going to say.
That's all right. Let's go into the last story in health and MAHA, and then we'll go into the U.S. politics.
From Brandon Tatum, who I'm not such a big fan of right now, but due to other things, he says, quote, hidden cameras caught LA Homeless Services Authority workers.
This was a crazy story.
Dumping cases of taxpayer-funded food meant for the homeless straight into dumpsters.
Our hidden cameras caught employees with the LA Homeless Services Authority throwing cases of taxpayer-funded food right into the dumpster. Food that's supposed to go to the homeless, now going in the trash. You can see it here just come pouring out of the box. And not just once or twice.
It's a sandwich, an apple, and water.
But despite the tens of thousands of homeless going hungry on the streets of LA, no one got to eat this food. Jay Handel chairs the Homeless Committee for the LA Neighborhood Councils.
This is an absolute disgrace. It's a theft of taxpayer dollars.
For months, we watched LASA employees picking up cases of food to give out to those less fortunate. These are outreach workers. They're supposed to spend their days interacting with the thousands of homeless in LA. The aim, according to LASA administrators, is for them to use the food as an opportunity to build trust in the hopes of convincing them to accept government services and housing and get them off your streets.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's the state there is California, and they spent over $1 trillion. With $1 trillion, you should have solved homelessness at this point. Yet, what happened over those decades? Homelessness has only increased in California. They've made an entire industry out of this thing, and the money just goes into, number one, politicians' pockets, NGOs' pockets. This is how they're funding a lot of these seedy NGOs. The money doesn't actually make it down to where it needs to make it down to.
Same in Vancouver as well.
And they know if they solve the problem,
They have no job.
Yeah.
But again, I will say that was it because they were going expired? But then again, expiry dates do have a leeway, and especially if someone goes hungry versus it's a day past its expiry date. I mean, you go for give food to the hungry person.
But that wasn't the case, because that's what I was thinking when I was grabbing that story, and then I was looking at the food bin. I paused it. You had bananas there in perfectly good condition, literally underripe, not overripe. So there was no excuse to throw that food out. And some of it maybe, but we know if it was another state, maybe, but we know what's happened in California over the last 2 decades with the homeless situation and the amount of corruption that lies there.
And going back to the chemical stories that we were saying, seeing in those trash cans, all that processed food as well, it is just crazy to me that in the U.S. there's that much level of processed foods, and that's seen as a solution just because it's cheap. Here in Mexico too, unfortunately, didn't used to be that way. Should I read comments or should we?
Oh yeah, read any comments we have.
Okay. Remote viewer says, "Thank you, see you again," and thank you so much for all your comments as well. You commented a lot, so thank you for letting us know what you're thinking. Canada Unchained says, I am for the PPC, and he told me that Alberta separation was the right thing to do. Either Alberta gets a good deal with Canada to remain or gets an even better deal alone. And I think it's just, and he says Bernier says that. And I think at this point, it's just going to get a better deal by separating.
Yeah, that needs to be what happens. It's a shame how much fear is coming out in a lot of these stories. People don't want to sign the petition or go out to the polls because they don't want to lose their jobs. They're scared about their bank accounts. So people need to stand up, and hopefully people are realizing how important this thing is.
And Removier says, not true. There is a 2-tier system in Canada. If you have money, you can buy treatment. Athletes get it all the time. And I think for athletes, it's different and specific because they're given the pathway as to where to get and how to get that treatment if there are ways that they can pay for it, or in the States or here in Mexico. But for the majority of the people, there's not an option. There's not, even for those that could pay, I could never find how to pay.
There is the secondary option. The secondary option is Mexico. Most Americans and Canadians come down to Mexico for either cheaper treatment, and because the dentists and doctors see so many people here, they give a very high quality of care. And number two, like for stem cells or experimental treatments, a lot of the stuff isn't offered in Canada or the United States, so they come down here to Mexico for treatment. Why don't we do we'll do.
Hold on, we have one more.
Oh, okay.
Joe Montana. Hello. Joe Montana asks, how many hours a week do you guys work on your channel?
That's all we do.
A lot, whenever we can. And I now that I'm trying to do Spanish, which I haven't fully been able to finish, and English and editing, and we're doing edited videos, live videos, research just to get information.
Well, and she says I don't do anything because I gather all the stories. She's like,
well, I edit all the videos.
All you do is look at X. You don't do anything. And we were just having a fight before we went on the air.
A debate.
But yeah, it takes a lot to curate, especially when you're picking all these stories.
But also be informed and fully researched and investigate everything we have to do. And editing just takes it also.
Yeah, it's more than a full-time job. It's pretty much our life and our lifestyle.
It's why we saved up so much.
But it's also why I talk about subjects that I want to talk about, even if it's going to get throttled or censored.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we can move on.
We're going to go to 2 stories for each section.
Okay.
So the next section's remigration, then U.S., then Canada.
So we're going to remigration, then U.S., then Canada.
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
Although I think the first two stories in remigration are actually Canadian stories.
Okay. But that have to do with.
But the first one was freaking crazy.
Migration and remigration. From Martab Media, quote, and this is what I was just saying. Immigration Canada is introducing a new express entry pathway for highly trained foreign military personnel. Because none of the Canadians, real true Canadians that could be in the military, want to serve that government.
Well, and I just want to be clear here. Well-trained military personnel, they're not saying countries or anything like this. And the story we reported on, I think 2 weeks ago, was absolutely jaw-dropping. What they were, they're giving, oh God, what's it called? A refugee status to ISIS members from Syria because it's absolutely insane. So the EU is now giving ISIS members refugee status. I mean, are they going to welcome ISIS members into the Canadian military because they're well trained?
And it continues. So our government is going to give people who don't want to assimilate into Canadian culture high-powered weapons, because that's a great idea.
Today, we are introducing new categories designed to meet and support Canada's evolving needs and reflect our government's determination to attract the best talent to Canada. And finally, we are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe. Today,
Yeah, Canada is one of the first countries, and I notice this, and I don't think a lot of people are noticing this. Carney's very aware he doesn't want conservatives in the military. He wants it ideologically aligned. That's why he's trying to recruit retirees, people in the civil service, and now he wants immigrants. He wants anything but conservatives. I know a lot of people that tried to apply for the military that were like white males, just get rejected time after time. They have a certain diversity quota, whether it's female or a certain skin color. It's absolutely outrageous. Most of your people that join the military are going to be conservative men, and Canada is having a tough time trying to make a liberal military.
But I remember all the way back when they were doing the censoring and the jibby jab and the forcing and the mandates and all of that, I used to turn to you and say, especially within the military and what happened to James Topp and multiple other Canadian patriots that did want to defend their country, but then they saw what the government did to them. And I said, what young male Canadian that could actually join the military and would be a great recruit would ever want to join a government that did that to them or did that to the people that they used to look up to?
Well, they didn't, and a lot of those people cleared out of the military, and that's why they're trying to refill the ranks with ideologically aligned people because of what happened in the trucker protest, because of what happened in the jibby jab. They realize the Canadian military may have to be used on the Canadian people one day, so they want to make sure they're ideologically aligned with the government. And that's why you want immigrants, because you can indoctrinate them into a certain ideology right off of the bat.
And continuing on with the Canadian immigration stories from Dominion Society of Canada, quote, "None of this is radical. In fact, this is how Canadians expect our immigration system to function." And that is, I always forget her name, Candace Malcolm.
Yeah, Candace Malcolm.
40 million people in this country now. I would say only 20 or 25 million of them would be what you would consider Canadians. So what do we do with the rest of them? What do we do with people who were born here or people who fled other countries that are here that don't have any other place to go? Like how would you deal with that problem?
I think we need to start rolling back the policies, specifically of the most recent and most radical policies that we saw under Justin Trudeau. Our government needs to take this a lot more seriously. We need to, one, round up and deport all illegal migrants in this country. There's estimates that there's upwards of 500,000 of them all around the country. These people need to go. We need to get rid of all of these asylum claimants. The system has been taken advantage of for about the last 10 years now. Since about 2015, we've seen a massive spike in these claims. There's over 300,000 of them sitting in the system. These are just people trying to skip the queue and take advantage of our system. These asylum claimants need to go, as well as anyone who may have been an illegal migrant or asylum claimant that has been granted permanent status or citizenship status over the last decade. Like, these people came here taking advantage of our laws. They need to go. Same thing goes for birthright citizenship. We have much too lax laws, and we know that people are taking advantage of this through things like anchor babies and birth tourism. We need to tighten these laws. And again, we need to revoke status from people who took advantage of our laws and get rid of these people.
That's good.
We need to shut.
And oh God, I lost my train of thought. Canada used to have, those are just common sense policies, but Canada used to have the best immigration system in the world. I knew people that work for immigration systems in other parts of the world, whether it was the U.S., Australia, and they used to come to Canada, the government would send them there to research how is Canada getting it so right? And then they got it so wrong. They went from the perfect system literally to one of the worst immigration systems in the world almost overnight. It was around when Justin Trudeau got into office.
And I came in under the good system, which was a lot harder to get into Canada under. But I also saw with just other people that I would meet and that were immigrants and how much easier the process had been for them than for me. Again, I'm still not a citizen. I spent 13 years there, who knows how much money on the university education, and then worked there and paid taxes for what the other 9 years I was there. And it's insane to me that I'm still having issues doing that. But then I see people that had spent 2 years or way less time there getting almost automatic citizenship.
Oh, yeah.
So for the immigrants themselves as well, it's frustrating. And I have heard, luckily, other Canadian immigrants to Canada, content creators that have said exactly the same thing, that when they came in, it was a lot harder and it was a lot more strict and it worked and it functioned way better than what it is now.
Okay, let's go into U.S. politics. We'll do a couple stories there, and then we'll go into Canada.
Should I read the last few?
Yeah, if there's any comments, we'll get the comments now.
Sorry, Ethel, we'll go to RUMBLE and read all your comments and a string of your comments just all at once. But Joe Montana says, how many hours a week do you guys work on your channel and how hard was it to get to 1,000?
It was very hard to get to 1,000 because of the subject matters we talk about and because we broadcast out of Mexico City to an English audience. Yeah. YouTube didn't want to push us. Really, the Alberta separatist movement or independence movement is what pushed us over that edge. Mm-hmm. And it really, really, really helped. And I'm glad it was that issue because that issue is close to our heart.
And because we said, F it, we just have to start talking about it and hopefully somebody finds it interesting also outside of Canada, but specifically from Alberta.
And we try to talk about pop culture and other things to grow the channel, but it just wasn't interesting enough for me.
And it's also not what we've built the channel on and the ideas and what we wanted to be communicating and putting out there. So if you're not passionate about it, then it doesn't work. And I have realized that over and over again. What I'm passionate about is politics, geopolitics, Canada, the destruction of the West, the destruction of religion, free speech.
Well, if Donald Trump gets out of office, Newsom takes over and censorship comes in, I mean, I don't think we'll have a career anymore.
See what happens.
We're going to be the first on the hit list.
Nan says this world has gone mad in multiple different ways. And again, I will point at the chemicals that are messing up with people's brains too.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize it's happening.
And we've seen all these incidents with these mass ending of people and these SSRIs that are connected to these certain types of people.
Yeah. Joe Montana says, what happened to the cartel story? What cartel story?
Well, I think he was asking us to talk more about cartels.
Oh, okay. We will.
On the last episode?
Yeah. Maybe. Okay.
But we just...
I mean, there's a lot of content there, but maybe come to the Spanish channel. Or maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays, we could also add different things. Canada Unchained says, stay in Mexico, Canada cannot censor you there. And that, again, that is an advantage we have, that we can continue to put out the actual verified...
And for instance, our last section we were just in was remigration or immigration. Talking about that is considered a hate crime in Europe. I'm not going to be surprised if Canada brings in similar laws and starts arresting content creators for even talking about it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that we live in Mexico is a huge benefit, especially when talking to a Canadian audience, because it allows us to speak freely.
Mm-hmm. And Escape from Canada says there's a medical option at the Jimmy Patterson Clinic in Langley, BC. Never knew about that. Nobody ever told me about that. So, I mean, sure, but how many people know about it?
What's that?
That there's a medical option I'm guessing private medical option in Langley, BC, but how would I know? Also says, I read today that another trucker convoy is being planned for May this year. Ooh, if that happens, I want to try to go. Hopefully they'll let me in the country.
But it was so successful the first time, and that's probably the most successful peaceful protest. They left one lane open for emergency vehicles. It was hard to knock that protest in any other way, and it's been replicated around the world. I'd be a little scared that the federal government's going to try to infiltrate that and try to make something bad happen because they know how powerful that protest was the first time.
Again, they were able to instill the Emergencies Act out of it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to do that and even stop the whole Alberta canvassing effort. I wouldn't put it past them, so careful. We'll see. Are we moving on to the U.S. now?
We'll move to the U.S., then Canada, then we'll go to RUMBLE, read Ethel's comments, and that might be all we have time for.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, thank you so much to everybody that did join us for the Alberta story, because again, it is, I would say, the most important one right now.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the U.S. Quickly and swiftly.
Go to Mandani, the third story, and you can start with.
Okay, so we're starting with the third. There we go. And yeah, I mean, this is an insane story, an important one as well. because he's backtracking on everything. This is the new mayor, communist mayor of New York City. And wokeness says, quote, Mayor Mamdani says that they're forced to rein their rainy day fund, retiree benefit fund, and they're increasing property taxes, I believe, by 10%.
Okay, the reason this is so important is
everything he promised.
The reason this is so important, he promised to tax the 1% most wealthy and the biggest corporations. What he's decided to do is not do that and instead tax everybody through property taxes and other taxes. What's going on here? I mean, I didn't agree with taxing the 1% most wealthy. I thought that would have them flee the state. But what people actually voted for, that voted for him to vote him in, they didn't vote for this policy. I wouldn't vote for him anyway.
But they did, because they voted for socialism and communism, and this is what always ends up happening in these systems.
Well, originally the United States had no taxes, and World War I came in, and they promised it would just be on the 1%. And look at the tax system today.
Mm-hmm. Would rather do is ensure that they remain as they are so that the city can be on firm financial footing. However, in order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes across these other years. Would rather do.
And it's taxes that will affect the regular New Yorkers that expected all the money to come from all the wealthy people they wanted to tax. But oh, surprise, the wealthy people don't want to pay it, so they move because they're able to. They set up shop elsewhere that taxes them less, and then that tax rolls down to the regular people, and they end up with no money anyways because they spend it and mismanage it so much. Sorry, I hate communism and socialism. What next, though?
Just go to the next story that's on the list.
Okay. From Amuse, quote, judge declares mistrial after Dallas jury fails to convict Tren de Aragua members who kidnapped a man and his children and ended them in front of them. Democrats are coaching juries to nullify prosecutions against illegals.
And this is becoming a big thing. Democratic states are educating people to nullify jury verdicts so nobody gets prosecuted. A lot of people don't know about nullification, and I was trying to talk to some people the other day about this, and they just didn't believe it. Because you have an option rather than guilt or innocence, you can nullify as a jury.
Judge declared a mistrial in a first-of-its-kind case in Dallas County. It was a capital murder trial involving a violent Venezuelan gang. Jurors said they were deadlocked. NBC5's Shannon Miller joins us live with the very latest. Shannon.
Well, Merritt, this was the second and final time that the jury could not come to a unanimous decision in this case of Carlos Zambrano Boulevard. Take a listen here as the judge read that decision shortly before 4 this afternoon.
And let the record reflect that the jury has been deliberating 3 full days on this matter. That being the case, the court will declare a mistrial in this case.
Now, this is the first case involving Tren de Aragua to be prosecuted by the Dallas County DA's office. Early Friday afternoon, the jury told the judge they were deadlocked then in their decision, and the judge told them to go back and deliberate and try to come to a unanimous decision. Farmers Branch police say Boulevard is one of 4 suspects responsible for kidnapping.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And I mean, this is happening in Dallas with these nullified juries, but they're actually coaching, especially in New York and especially in California, Washington, and Oregon. A lot of these activists are being coached and coaching other people to nullify the jury. So, and this is going in a wide swath of cases.
And it's insane because they'll never suffer the repercussions. I mean, and if they do, then they'd maybe understand the importance of what people have been screaming about with these violent people that were allowed to go into the country, to go into the U.S., and who were doing the exact same things back in their home countries. A lot of their home countries also don't want them back.
And you can skip the next 2 stories, go into the Washington State story about the firefighters.
Okay, hold on. Now I can't find it. I can't find it. Hold on. This is what happens when we skip stories. I think I closed it.
Okay, just go to that one. No, just go to whatever one's next, and then we'll go into Canada.
Okay. Hold on.
Just click on one and then
I know, but I ended up in the UK for some reason. From Kevin Kiley, quote, shockingly, Newsom has come out against a bill in Congress to cap California's gas tax. This is despite the fact that gas prices have risen 10 cents in California.
Oh, what's the next story?
Okay.
Just click on it.
This one.
What's the one before the gas tax?
I closed it. So.
Oh, God, they were connected. It was the black guy that was talking about why our tax price is so high.
Okay, we can bring it on Friday.
All right, let's go into Canada.
Okay, fine.
You messed it all up, Nat.
Well, because you say get rid of this one, get rid of that one, and
Well,
we're very organized, clearly.
We usually get about we usually have about 50 stories for the day.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got way behind because we had so many comments today. So,
but thank you so much for the comments. Okay, let's go to Canada, which is basically what we've been talking about this whole time.
And we'll fire through these stories, and then we'll go to RU and BLE.
Okay, now I have to find the first one, so you gotta wait. Hold on, Matt. There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm all my whole stories stream got messed up. But from CBC Watcher, quote, Matt General went AWOL for family reasons, but came back for more pay with the Carney as special advisor on economic and security partnerships.
But let's go through all of this. Starting with the fact that Matt General is going to keep his seat for Edmonton.
And this is the guy that switched seats yesterday. Or
switched parties yesterday from the Conservative Party to the Liberal Party. And this was a riding of Edmonton, which is crazy.
In Alberta.
Why is this interesting? Well, last fall, you might remember, rumors were swirling that he was going to cross the floor at that point, defect to the Liberals, and he did not. Instead, he announced that he was going to be resigning his seat. He said at that point that he wanted to spend more time with his family. He characterized this as an amicable break with his Conservative caucus. He said he had a positive conversation with Pierre Poilievre at the time, that his fellow Conservatives remained friends, that he would remain a loyal Conservative, still supported that party
at that point. And we'll play this whole clip here, but this is a little bit ridiculous. They need to put some kind of law in that you're not going to be able to cross the aisle like this. I mean, what's Mark Carney going to just keep buying off politicians until he has a majority government? Yes. That's basically what he's done at this point.
Insisting really that this was not a loyalty question, that he would be stepping down because it was what was best for him. But he has not been present in the House of Commons in the months since, nor did he vote remotely in those key confidence votes that we were tracking, for example, on the federal budget last fall. This gave the impression that he already had basically one foot out the door, wasn't very engaged in being an MP anymore. We believed that there would be perhaps a by-election imminent for that Edmonton seat. But in a statement that he's now posted on his own social feed, General says that he had conversations around his family's kitchen table this winter. He characterized these conversations as honest and difficult. And he said that he was reflecting on what the Prime Minister said at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And based on that, he has now decided to join the Liberal government's fight. The Prime Minister, in the post that he made, announcing that General would become a Liberal, said that he was naming him now a special advisor on economic and
CBC. I don't want to get dinged, but this is absolutely disgusting, these games Mark Carney is playing. I mean, he's a businessman. I understand that. He's going to do whatever it takes to get a majority government at this point.
But also the people that are leaving their constituents down, like off by the wayside. I don't care about you anymore. You voted Conservative, but guess what? No, not anymore.
You also have to think this is like an Alberta riding, and the independence movement has to be big there. Yesterday, when Poilievre made that national statement.
Security partnerships. Now, I was going over some of Matt General's past as a parliamentarian on the opposition bench, and indeed, these kind of issues were among the ones that he was working on as a parliamentarian. Notably, Mark Carney's itinerary for today has now been adjusted. It's now showing the Prime Minister being in his hometown of Edmonton for a meeting with General. That would be at 11 o'clock Mountain, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll watch to see if anything further is disclosed coming out of that meeting about how this new role would work.
You can leave it there. And now there's 3 by-elections that are coming up, all in Liberal ridings that Liberals are expected to win. That would give Mark Carney majority government. The problem is the Speaker usually doesn't vote, so he may need one more person to cross the aisle. I fully expect the other parties to call a snap election before those 3 by-elections are done. Mark Carney is way ahead in the polls right now. It's not looking good for Conservatives in Canada. I wish I could say different, but the Alberta independence movement may be the only option at this point.
But again, they did it to themselves too by allowing this to continue to happen. I mean, this is, I would say, even more of an indictment of Pierre Poilievre himself, letting so many people escape down by the wayside, than even Mark Carney. I mean, we know Carney is disgusting, and he's going to be doing this and anything to vie for power, but Poilievre was supposed to be different.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Okay. Let's go into
the next one?
Yeah, then we're just going to go through them all.
Okay.
A big Canadian audience tonight, so we'll go into Canadian news. Oh my God, this girl. Oh.
Woman. From Martin Pelletier, it says, we're going to get our ass handed to us this spring. USMCA will be scrapped by the Americans, and our ninja trade negotiators will be forced to accept a bad bilateral agreement. Gonna have to play them one
She looks like what I imagine Donald Trump's ass would look like.
I would not.
The Americans didn't know they were going to be negotiating with Donald Trump's ass.
So I play both of them?
You just play the...
I would not underestimate how the people, Donald Trump and the people around him, are going to use what we're going to see in terms of price impacts, job impacts, as a way of kind of doubling down on, Canada's not our friend. They're taking advantage of us. And now they're taking advantage of you, American worker, American consumer. I think this is a very big vulnerability that we got to get ahead of really fast. I would not underestimate.
That's exactly what she's doing, or Mark Carney's doing, and she's going to be doing.
We actually,
this is confession through projection in the utmost.
Do you know what's the other one or no?
No, just the one was good. Okay. I just wanted to show that this is supposed to be the chief negotiator that's supposed to be negotiating with the United States, and she's already showing her cards with this level of Trump derangement syndrome. Alberta has already kind of laid out the game plan to negotiate with Trump. You can have a good relationship with them. The problem is Mark Carney is such an ideologue, he's unwilling to shift his general positions ideologically. Even if the Canadian economy is going to fall off a cliff.
And from Northern perspective, quote, liberals will use conservative obstruction as justification for an election, but get called out on it on air.
And the last time you and I spoke, right at the outset of this sitting, Minister, you accused the Conservatives of, quote, I'm quoting here, systematic obstruction, and told them to get out of the way. Do you concede that your framing at the time has not materialized?
Well, no. In fact, I think my framing was not only pretty accurate as to what was occurring, but prescient, in as much as we've been able to make progress.
It seems that the pattern from the Liberals from this fall session onwards is to introduce bills in specific orders, so it causes the Conservatives to react to them in certain ways, and introduce poison pills into these bills so that they can point and wave their finger at the Conservatives and call them obstructionists. And if you don't believe me, here's them saying it themselves.
Conservative slogans, rhetoric, and
Okay, you
obstruction.
can leave it there. Basically, they want the Conservatives and the other parties to call this election. The polling right now is very good for Mark Carney, yet he doesn't want to be the one that calls the election. I mean, Canada just has, other than Alberta, Canada has Trump derangement syndrome to levels that are just unfounded.
And insane as well.
Oh, let's go into, okay.
This one or no?
This was... We already covered this in the beginning, didn't we?
No, it's a hunger crisis.
Oh, okay.
From Table Salt, quote, Poilievre says Canada is now in a hunger crisis, calls for emergency measures as Canadian food inflation spikes to the highest in the G7.
Well, and he knows what the issues are, and he's got solutions for them. It's not like he's just giving lip service. He's got solutions I believe would work, solutions that Mark Carney could even steal.
This morning, we got some terrible news from Statistics Canada that food price inflation has now hit a spectacular 7.3%, by far the worst in the G7, twice what it is in the United States, and twice what it was when Mr. Carney took office. He promised that he would be judged by the prices at the grocery store, and here we are a year later, and those prices are rising at a world-leading rate. Canadians deserve affordable food that they can enjoy with their families, food that will nourish their bodies, not hunger and desperation. What we have now is a hunger crisis in this country. 2.2 million people lined up at food banks. We've seen food prices rise at near record rates, and those prices are accelerating. And so I wrote the Prime Minister a letter today proposing emergency measures to reverse the inflationary policies that the Prime Minister and Liberals have imposed. One, we're calling for the full elimination of the industrial carbon tax and the new fuel standard tax, which drives up the cost.
And pause it for a second. Yeah, and I don't like the fact when he says, I contacted the Prime Minister and I'm recommending emergency measures. I don't want to see the Emergencies Act come in any way, shape, or form. That's just to say the least. And one more thing, I think if Mark Carney does get a majority government, he may try to invoke the Emergencies Act to block Alberta from a vote. I don't know if that's possible or if it's not, but I would fully expect it from Mark Carney if he gets a majority government. That's one reason Albertans might want to vote for Poilievre in the next election, to make sure the independence vote goes forward, because they're going to hold the snap election before the independence vote, I believe.
We're calling for the elimination of costly regulations that do nothing for the environment or public safety, but ban the use of plastics to preserve food. More and more food is going to waste because we're not allowed to use the best technology to preserve it, which is plastic in many cases. We also think the government needs a real plan to reverse inflationary deficits, which have doubled under Mr. Carney's watch. This money printing creates higher demand without supply and drives up the cost of everything. Finally, Mr. Carney suggested in the House of Commons that one of the causes for food price inflation is Canada's weak dollar. We're willing to work with him on policies that will strengthen our dollar, like unblocking our resources and selling them on the world market, which will create demand for the Canadian dollar, boost its buying power, and allow Canadians to buy more internationally priced goods, which includes food and fuel.
I mean,
so let's use Alberta again, essentially.
God, I mean, he's got solutions, not just for that, but he's got as much as I don't like that he compromises a lot of his first principles, and I wish he was more conservative, he's got answers for a lot of these questions. And if he did get in with a majority government, I think he could make a change. The thing is, he's never going to get more than a minority, and the Liberals aren't going to make a coalition with him. They're basically going to freeze him out, even if he wins a minority government.
And it would take too much time to actually reverse everything that's been implemented and put in place. It's not like it's going to happen from morning to night, from night to morning. It's going to take years and years to actually see results if they're able to even try to start getting results.
Let's go over to RUMBLE now.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me read the last few comments here on YouTube, and then we're going to RUMBLE. Our username is there under where it says on air. But I'll read your comments now. And thank you so much to everybody that did join us. It was a lot of people, so thank you so much. Hold on.
I'm going to try a couple more episodes with Alberta Independence Movement, probably next week, twice, if we get large viewerships. I'm going to extend our shows out to probably Tuesdays and just do a complete show on the Alberta Independence movement at least once a week.
From Roland Chapin says, quote, so why did I say quote? So which camera am I looking at there? Premier Smith has some loyal supporters, but she has done bad things to Alberta, like Alberta Pension, which was her mandate, and she refuses to do the same with Alberta gun licenses. And yeah, she has not been perfect. She does not have a perfect record at all.
No, nobody's going to be perfect, but as far as pushing this Alberta independence movement forward for a vote, I'm surprised she's actually cooperated as much as she has, so I do commend her for that.
And Roll also says Daniel Smith attended a young leaders training with the WEF. But again, I think most politicians have, because they're career politicians and have been involved in and have had to use some terrible tactics, they all have dirt on them. That's why I always say more citizens and less career politicians in those positions of power.
Well, yeah, if Alberta gets its independence, maybe a best idea wouldn't be to put a career politician as your new president or prime minister, whatever you're going to call it at that point.
I hope they call it president. Okay, thank you so much. YouTube we'll see you over at RUMBLE. We might do some of the spicy stories that YouTube doesn't allow us to do on here.
We have a lot of comments to read from
RUMBLE, so we will read those first, but we'll see you over there. Please do also subscribe if you haven't here on YouTube. It really does help us out. Thank you so much to everybody that has, and we'll see you in a few seconds over there. There's our username.
And I'm just logging in now.